Okay.
Hello, Vincent.
Hello, how are you?
I'm very well. We're live. How are
Good.
things?
What?
How are things?
Good, I'm feeling better. I got into a little disagreement with my boss. But fine.
Well, I hope your job is safe.
Well, I hope so. I don't know. I think they don't really like me there because, well, I can tell by the way they talk to me, they don't really like me that much, but, um, they are so okay. We have the best store, right? We're number one when it comes to like cleanliness and everything. Everyone says it.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone's like, "Oh, you have the cleanest you have the cleanest store, and all this other kind of stuff." So, but even though we're the cleanest store and we always get like these compliments, they kind of act like I leave the store messy all the time, and even though we're number one, and I just don't understand what more they're looking for. And I really think that they're being crazy because I'm not the only one who checks the store. So there's like other people that check the store, and like none of us are seeing a problem. And then I'm just supposed to believe that nobody saw a problem, and then, it's trashed. Like it's hard for me to like believe that.
Well,
That
you could take pictures, I suppose, of things after you've checked it and left it, so they can't say, "Ooh, Vincent left it in a mess." Maybe.
well, yeah, I mean, yeah, I could kind of do that. That would take me a long time,
Oh.
but to take pictures of the whole store would take me a long
Oh
time.
no, I mean, oh, okay. I thought it was just a little part of it or something. Hmm. Do do you, do they know about your politics?
Some of the staff do, yeah, they do. I don't know if the managers do. They might. I have thought about that, but
You've cut out. I can't hear you now. If you're speaking,
hello, can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
Yeah, I don't know if they know about my politics. I don't know if my bosses know about my politics. It could be that. I have wondered that, but they're constantly criticizing me. And then the other day I was like, I wish you would just fire me. And the way he said, he's like, well, you can quit. And I could tell by the way he said it and in his face, like he wouldn't be all that upset if I quit. But he told me the only reason he would fire me is if I disobeyed his orders, is what he told me.
Hmm.
But I mean, I don't know. They act like I'm this horrible worker, you know what I mean? That's just really bad at my job. And, I don't think it's true because I mean, sometimes two or three people look over, always two people look over the work, and like sometimes three. And, it's just hard to believe that we're just not seeing this horrible broiling mess that they're talking about, like, the store's only 70% complete,
Hmm.
you know, you
But I mean,
know.
have you spoken to anybody else? I mean, usually there's some person for you to talk about these things to.
Well, to the staff,
You've dropped out again.
sorry, there's nothing wrong with my mute. My headset keeps going on mute. Um, um, well, there's the staff, and I mean, they can be like, I'm like, well, when we leave the store, do you see a mess? And, they say no. So, because they're also, they've also checked it themselves, you know what I mean? And they didn't see anything, and I didn't see anything. So, the idea that we're walking out, leaving the place to sty is just ridiculous at this point. I don't believe that it's true.
Mm-hmm.
And, I know that for a fact that the other managers, or, they don't leave the store pristine. Now, I mean, we all make mistakes. I'm not saying like, you know, I'm not talking about like they leave one or two or three things out of place. I mean, I've gone in after them and it just wasn't bad.
You you dropped out again.
It wasn't bad. It just wasn't perfect. Actually, can you hold on a second? There's something wrong with let me try to, hold on. I gotta edit my settings so I'm just talking to you from my computer so I don't get any more of these problems with
Okay.
this thing. Hold on.
Yeah, it started early, Amanda.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yes, yes. Yes, I can hear you loud and clear.
Okay. Um, yeah, so I don't know. I don't know what to really,
I mean, what I mean to say is that usually, if somebody complains about you at work, there's some personnel manager to kind of mediate, right? I mean, that's just that's all I meant.
well, yeah, but I mean, it's the store manager and, who's my boss directly. I mean, I could go above him, but, I don't necessarily want to go above him.
Mm-hmm.
But I did fight back with him. I think that they were just being absurd. Um, they claimed that I was being disrespectful because, so, there's a bunch of tasks to do in the store and like, so whatever. So yesterday, I wasn't feeling well, so I asked if I could leave when the other associate or when the other manager came in, and they said yes. So I was in the middle of my work, and the manager came in, and I said, "Okay, here's where I dropped off. This is where I stopped, and you can pick up from there."
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't like the task that I dropped him off at. They said I should have finished that task myself and then given him the next one. And I'm like, well, what does it matter what task I dropped him off at? What if I dropped him off at the next task and that wasn't done, or I was in the middle of doing this and that wasn't done? What does it matter what I'm in the middle of doing when he gets there when I leave? It doesn't. It's not disrespectful. I'm not just what, because you thought it was a bad job or something. Like, you just told me I could leave at 3 and I passed over my work to him, and that's not disrespectful, and I did nothing wrong.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not going to tolerate that. I'm not going to let them be uppity with me about that. I did absolutely nothing wrong.
Well, if you're ill and they said you could leave at 3, then whatever that's left should be whatever's that's left.
Yeah, exactly. So screw them. So anyway, I mean, they have it out for me anyway. I mean, I don't think I'm a bad worker. I really don't. I mean, I don't. I mean, they, every once in a while I make other mistakes, but the only thing they really complain about is this, keeping the store clean, which they're just crazy. I think they're OCD or something like that. They're OCD and they're also just like, I don't think as aware of their own faults either. Like, when I go up after them, there's problems, but I don't like, it's not like, I'm sure I leave the same number of problems as they do. It's not so much of a problem that it needs to be like turned into an issue. I mean, one, two things out of place is not something to like really, go after, or, to say the store's only 70% done. Are you kidding me?
Hmm.
Are you kidding me? I left 3 out of every 10 things out of place. Like, don't even tell me that. That doesn't even make sense.
Hmm. Do you think they might have it in for you for some reason or other, or maybe they just kind of want to shed staff?
No, I think they just want me to quit.
Hmm. Did you enjoy working there before all this happened?
Yeah, I did. I did. I mean, they were always really hard on me about this recovery and like saying that I've been doing a bad job at it, which I just don't think is true. But yeah, it was pretty good. But then we got new managers and we got cameras and all this stuff, and so now it's like a little bit annoying.
No, I guess they got the cameras for a reason. They kind of, they want to staff to, I don't know, pull their socks up or something.
Well, well, there was theft going on in the store, like lots of theft, so they wanted to undo that.
Mm-hmm. Hmm. So, do you want to share with us what your best job was? I mean, the job that you most enjoyed?
Oh, I was working for a scientist. I was her assistant. She was the chair of an immunology department at a medical school, and she had a research lab, and I managed her office and her lab for her.
Mm-hmm. Hmm. Yes, that sounds well, a managerial job. Yeah,
Yeah, it was a managerial job.
mhm.
Yeah, I've had a few managerial jobs now, but I don't know what I'm gonna do. It's very hard for me to find jobs I can do.
Why? Because you're not trained, or what?
No, I think I'm just like, there's not a lot of jobs that like I would like. It's not a lot of jobs that I want to do.
Uh-huh, uh-huh, you're a bit fussy. I mean, I once had a girlfriend telling me that I should be working in an antique shop. So,
Antique shop.
yes, I was a bit offended actually, but I think she sort of meant it as a compliment, so I have to take it as such.
Can you give me 1 second?
Sure.
I hope we're not boring your audience. We're just talking about
Well,
like,
they're interested. I mean, Amanda's asking, what type of store is this? So, I mean, I didn't want to, I kind of want to protect your privacy, but if you want to share it, feel free.
it's a retail store that sells all different kinds of junk. Like it's a variety store that sell. I mean, it's like I don't know. It's like it's like a small, inexpensive version of like a Kmart or something like that.
Oh, I just flashed across my mind a 5 and 10 cent store. But I mean, okay, this is going back many many decades. But I just
Yeah,
remember
the
some.
5 and 10 cent stores. Yeah, it's like that, but it's like a 5 and 10 cent store. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, in the UK we have this thing called Poundland, and they say, well, everything's a pound, and you can,
But everything is more than a pound, right?
yeah, yeah, it's really more than a pound, and it's like, oh, you mean the £2 store.
Yeah, I know. They got to change these names. So this is what I tell everyone that 5 and 10 went out of business because you couldn't sell things for 5 and 10 cents anymore. And the dollar store is going out of business because you can't sell things for $1 anymore.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, inflation is going so crazy, and yeah, yeah. Huh. I mean, I guess if I had a job, it would be, yeah, yeah, just pay me to do what I'm doing now. And I guess a posh version of it would be, well, having a radio or TV show. I guess I would prefer radio so I don't have to dress up.
Hmm.
I mean, that would be my ideal job. Or maybe just sort of write stuff and I don't know.
Well, I think you could do it. I think that I do feel that you get an unfair shake because I mean nobody likes to talk to you, but um I don't really know why they don't like. I mean, they don't. I don't think they have very like legitimate reasons, but everyone treats you like you're just like this, this like
Monster
just unspeakable creature. You know what I mean?
from
Like
the swamp.
the what?
From the swamp.
A swamp?
The unspeakable, the swamp creature,
Yeah,
rising
like
out.
yes, exactly. you know,
with all
like
the
you're
mud and
just,
slime. Yes, but
and
yeah.
you're just like not knowing, you're not allowed to like talk to anybody or whatever. I mean, nobody wants to, you talking to them or on their show or hold on one second, or on their show or acknowledging your existence. For some reason you have this energy around you that people are very scared of you and just don't like your views being broadcast, and they don't even like attacking your views because then it kind of like exposes them, and I just don't think that they want your views being very much exposed anywhere.
Yes, I mean, it is a conspiracy of silence to not even discuss my ideas. I mean, people would, you would expect them to criticize me and say, "Oh, this is so stupid," and she's so mad, and did you know she said this? You know she said that, no, I mean, yesterday, have you heard of Brutus the Insane? He's this British guy who's Hindu.
No, I haven't.
But anyway, I mean, he's sort of really interested in, Kanye saying what he said about, Hitler and all that, and basically, and I said, well, I have the answer to the JQ, and I know that the Jews wouldn't like it. But and it would be interesting. But he said, no, I spoke, yeah. And somebody in the chat, because I was posting in this chat, somebody said, oh, gee, Claire's got an interesting take on the JQ. Let her on. And he said, no, I've spoken to her. I won't, and then I posted something, and then he timed me out, and I know what it was because I said, is the reason why you reject all the Abrahamic faiths. Because he was going on about God and how it's necessary to believe in God to promote social conservatism, blah blah blah, and I said, oh, so is the reason why you fled to Hinduism because you don't like the Jews and you don't want the idea and that Islam is connected to the God of Israel, and he went no, and then he tied me out. So this is the sort of treatment I get, but it's I think he does know what I propose, and he probably thinks, yeah, it would annoy the Jews, my answer to the JQ, but he doesn't want anybody knowing about it, and recently Duvid was being really snooty about it because he was on, he came on, and this month is basically Koraniyule, and I guess I tend to call, the chats in December Koraniyule. And then he said, no, you're so dishonest. I didn't agree to be on Koraniyule. I only agreed to talk to you about Kanye.
Who is this?
Duvid.
Oh.
So he said, you're so dishonest. And I said, oh, well, it was a genuine misunderstanding because somebody else, said, Duvid was on Koraniyule. And I thought, like, I might as well just call it Koraniyule. And I guess he didn't want it being thought that he is on such good terms with me that he is invited on Koraniyule. So, I mean, that was basically his thing. And then he said, oh, I'm so dishonest. And then I said, oh, how have I been dishonest? And there was this long silence, and he couldn't think of anything I'd been dishonest about, which quite pleased me. And then in the end, he scrabbled for a reason and said, "Oh, I always sort of get bad vibes and criticisms, for talking to you. So that's why and I don't trust you, and stuff like that. So, yeah, I guess."
I mean, I don't find you, sometimes I find you intellectually dishonest in that you will just continuously repeat things that we have already flushed out are not true. Like you finally have stopped doing it, but I don't know how many times I had to tell you that there's no need for a Torah theocracy in Israel for the Noahide laws to apply or be set up around the world. There's just no need for that. And, you just kept insisting that there needs to be a Torah theocracy, there needs to be a Torah theocracy. No, there didn't. I showed you there doesn't need to be. And you do that a lot with a lot of positions where, you'll just repeat this thing that we've already come to the decision isn't
I'm
true.
not the only one, and okay, I don't accept okay, I can see that it's theoretically possible for Israel not to be a Torah theocracy, but for Gentile nations to adopt the no-hide laws. I see it is possible, but I don't think, Jews will, it's like, um, but then Jews would have to be no-hide, right? Israel would have to be no-hide.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. Look, Jews could be decadent homosexuals over in Israel. The Noahide laws are still to be set up by Gentile. People don't understand this, that the Jews are not really in control of setting up those courts. So it doesn't matter what Jews are doing. All you need is one rabbi out in the world telling the Gentiles to do this. And as long as the Gentiles are doing it for themselves and everything is fine, they don't really need that many Jews. I mean, they need Jews as consultants, but there's enough rabbis for that. So, I don't really care what, everyone's like, well, most Jews aren't. I don't care what most Jews are doing. They're not really the power behind the throne. I mean, secular Jewry can do whatever it wants. All you need is Orthodox Jewry. And then the Gentiles fill in the rank and file.
Okay, I understand because so I mean basically Gentiles can follow any laws they like anyway, and rabbis would be helpless against them, right? You know, I mean that's what they do. I mean it's the same thing as with secular Koranism, because the Muslims who say, well, we don't agree, it's not Islam because you're not Muslim and we're not, and it's like, well, you can't stop anyone from adopting any kind of moral system or any kind of secular political ideology, because you don't have the power to forbid them from doing it. And yeah, to that extent I would agree. I mean, my question to you would be, well, why would they use the no-hide laws and have to go through have to consult Jews when they already have the Quran? So that's our area of disagreement, and
Well,
and
I've already told you. Well, I wrote that article. The only thing that you and Mujid took exception with was the idea that um, in Islam, you might not necessarily be in control of your own land. That's what that Parwaz guy said, and he showed the references, and you said that those references in the Quran didn't really apply. But when I looked them up, it did say certain things about land. It was written as like, oh, the land of Allah, and this. It didn't exactly come out and say that Muslims aren't allowed to own private property, but I could see where it was going about Allah and the land. And, I could see how, it could be interpreted that way, at least from what I was looking at. And I mean, Mujid said that they were just irrelevant passages, so I'm going to look at it. But there were other things that I put in there as to why you would not want to be Muslim and you would choose the Noahide laws. Let me just look it up again.
because you
So,
want to practice usury.
yeah, okay, if you want to practice usury. So let me just, oh, come on. What do you mean it can't be reached? Are you kidding me? Okay, what did I say here?
About
Okay, so you guys are saying, oh, well, the land thing doesn't count, that Muslims are allowed to own their own land, but I want to look that up because this isn't the first time that I've heard this thing about Muslim land ownership. And I mean, this guy put it in there. So you might not want a one-party system. You don't want freedom of religion because you want Noahidism, which would forbid idolatry, even in private. So under Islam, you're allowed to practice idolatry inside your house, but you might not want that even in private. You don't want terms of inheritance. You don't want the Quran breaking up how you can distribute your inheritance to your relations. You do want usury. You see no reason to not eat pork. And then the command against accumulating mass wealth. So, maybe Noahides are more into wealth. And then the last thing I said, land is owned by the state and the individual, but you guys are contesting that. So I just gave you a bunch of reasons why somebody would want to be Noahide and not Muslim.
I think Islam has such a long head start over Noahidism that, if Gentiles decide to go for God's laws, they would choose Islam just because it's got a longer track record, and
Yeah, and it's got a bad track record. Number one, that's the problem with Islam, is that it has a bad track record, and Noahidism is new, and also, I mean, Noahidism has been in practice, but the Jews have been preparing this. This is older. Noahidism is older than Islam because the Talmud is older than Islam, um,
yeah, but
and
but the Jews have
also,
had no effect on. Well, I suppose yes and no, because they say, oh, but the Christians took our Tanakh and turned it into their Christian Bible, and they got, some of our rules and followed some of them.
yeah, well, that's okay. They also believe that Islam and Christianity started as a pre-Noahide movement to slowly start Noahidizing the world, and that now it's time. We don't need Christianity and Islam anymore because they got rid of most of the idolatry, and now it's time for pure Noahidism, and now they are at their. I mean, they're going to take advantage of that, and they've said that they're going to, and they're at the point where it's time. I think that people are looking for something new. The West is looking for something new. Islam has a track record. There's a lot of Islamophobia in the West. The only
As well as
reason there's any
anti-Semitism.
anti-Semitism in the West is because Jews are liberal. If Jews start pushing the Noahide laws, anti-Semitism will disappear. People would not, if the Jews have been pushing the Noahide laws since the beginning of time, there would never have been a Nazi movement, ever. The Nazis would never have even appeared if
Why
the
do you say
Jews.
that?
Because what would the problem have been? They didn't like the Jews spreading communism. They didn't care if the Jews were spreading old Torah Testament. Do you really think they cared about Jews who were telling Gentiles not to be homosexuals, idolaters, and blasphemers? They didn't care about that. That's not what was making them so angry with the Jews. What was making them angry with the Jews was their liberalism. Nobody hates the Jews because of spreading, except for me. Most 99% of the planet doesn't hate the Jews for spreading biblical morals of the Old Testament. People don't sit around despising the Orthodox Jews. You know what I mean? Oh my God, look at them. They're so into these Old Testament morals. Those people, you don't really hear people grinding their teeth about Orthodox Jewry.
But probably because they're quite rare, I suppose, and but they do get beaten up from time to time, don't they?
But yeah, they get beaten up from time to time. But I mean, that's not what most people are complaining about. Most people are not complaining about Orthodox Jewry. They're complaining about liberal Jewry, liberal secular Jewry.
But I suppose I mean, why can't they accept that if they're complaining about liberal Jews, they just could be complaining about liberal Gentiles, and they're far more liberal Gentiles than they are liberal Jews?
Well, I agree with you. I agree with you that they should be complaining about Gentiles. And I agree with you that I don't think Jews are responsible for all liberalism. I mean, like these white nationalists who pretend that Gentiles are incapable of coming up with liberalism themselves. And the only reason that there's any liberal Gentiles is because the Jews deceived us all into it. No, Gentiles, look, during the time when Israel was an Old Testament theocracy, the Gentiles around them were liberals. Okay, in Egypt they were having lesbianism and women were marrying two men. The Gentiles surrounding the state of Israel were liberals, and the Jews were conservatives, and that's the way it was. And the Jews only became liberal when they got thrown out into the scattering and they got mixed up with all these liberal Gentiles, and then they adopted liberalism and they did it harder and stronger than the Gentiles were doing it. And that they're acting like Gentiles. If Jews stop acting like Gentiles, then all these white nationalists will stop hating them. If they just start promoting the Noahide laws, they'll stop hating them. and as what's going to happen, in my opinion, what's going to happen, Orthodox Jewry is going to be promoting the no hide laws, and and the white right is going to see that. It's going to become confused, and it's going to say, well, that seems like a good idea, but I don't know about, it doesn't make sense with the rest of Jews. But then when the liberal secular Jews come out and start saying, well, the Noahide laws are not that bad and you shouldn't be against them and there's nothing wrong with them and they're actually good, that's going to mix things up, confuse it even further, because then, doesn't that put the secular Jewry on the right side? I mean, aren't they now a little bit confused? Secular Jewry is going to have to be in a position for a little bit of a while where they're going to be supporting Trans Story Hour and Noahidism at the same time. Okay, there's going to become, but the deeper they get into Noahidism, the more powerful that Noahidism becomes, the more liberal Jewry, in order to save the face of Jewry, will have to capitulate to the Noahide movement. They're not going to be able to come out and be like, oh no, this is wrong, this is bad. There's never going to be a secular Jews against Noahidism. There's never going to be that. So the more the Noahide campaign goes further, the more liberal Jewry will Noahidize, and then as all of Jewry becomes more Noahidist, then anti-Semitism will begin to disappear.
Yeah, so basically, Gentiles want more social conservatism, and if Jews knew what was good for them, they would support it too. And quite a few of them actually are social conservatives, as are quite a few Gentile social conservatives, but they don't have the support of the media, who are pushing, I guess, sexual liberation, and I guess, people who want social conservatism need to fight a bit harder for it. They need to have a clearer and stronger narrative, and this is what I propose. I'm saying, well, Christianity would fail because hardly anybody believes in it, even when they were supposed to believe in it, and they only pretended to believe in it because they were scared of the consequences of not believing in it, because of the horrible practice of burning heretics at the stake. And the American Republic was the first European, screw you to Christianity, by saying no, we're not gonna be part of Britain. We don't like you, King George, and we're gonna be a republic because you're a tyrant, but I suppose it's going to be a long discussion about whether the founding fathers rejected Christianity in order to reject monarchy, or rejected monarchy in order to reject Christianity. But I can imagine that educated men would not like being forced to say that they're Christian and that they believe that Jesus is God when they don't. And maybe that was really what they fought the Revolutionary Wars about. It wasn't really about taxation, but about representation.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I think that once the Americans got their way, the French said, we're going to have some of that too, and then they had their revolution, and then then the whole of Europe got really scared about what could happen, and they sort of became more reasonable and a bit more liberal, and then they slowly forgot about their Christianity. But I mean, the point is that it's all been tried, though. Western Europe has tried liberalism and fascism and Nazism, and the Russians tried communism, and none of it has worked. And so it's got to be, you know what I'm going to say, it's got to be the Quran. And and that has more power than it's going to be no-hardism, and people go, what's this no-hardism thing, because hardly anybody has heard of it.
No, but that's I mean, look, we're getting to a point that you can't say hardly anybody's heard about it, because enough people have heard about it. I can go on Facebook and I can put a comment under somebody about the Noahide laws, and there's enough people on the thread that know what I'm talking about. Yes, some people ask, what is that? But it's not like it was 10 years ago where nobody knew what I was talking about. I mean, now there's at least a cohort of an in-group in the West that knows what the Noahide laws are, and it's not a small in-group. I mean, Noahide is not yet a living room word, but it's on its way to getting there. I mean, when I come up on your channel or people come up on my channel, like, people know what it is. I mean, lots of people who listen to you know who it is, and they can come on and have a conversation about it. So it's really getting to the point that that's no longer an excuse where, oh, well, nobody's heard of the Noahide laws. Now they have. The only, I have the excuse that it only works in my favor that few less people have heard about it, because it shows why it hasn't taken over yet. I mean, let it first become well known and then give it some time to become popular, and then it'll take over Islam and Christianity very quickly. The only reason it hasn't is because, only 10% of the population has ever even heard of it. Or, maybe 20% of the population has only ever heard of the word Noahide. So,
Yeah, but everybody else has heard of Islam. But have you had any contact with white nationalists about the Noahide laws?
yes, I have. White nationalists have, for the most part, been very hostile. Hostility is not exactly the word. They've been very dismissive of it, in that, on two levels. I mean, they don't think it's a bad thing. Okay, like, it doesn't grate them the wrong way. When white nationalists hear about the Noahide laws, they're not like, oh, ew. They're not like turned off or grossed out, or, and most of them think that they're pretty good laws.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that they're pretty good ideas. The only thing that they don't think that the Jews are going to be able to accomplish this, and that, it's just a nothing. It's just nothing to even contemplate, because there's no way that this is going to happen, is basically what their whole, mantra is. But, I obviously very much disagree with that. And I think it even just starts with, well, it's not a bad idea. What does the white right hate about Noahidism, really? Unless they're one of these really staunch pagans that, like me, who just really cannot tolerate anything about anti-idolatry and anti-blasphemy, or maybe if they're homosexual, then they don't like the anti-homosexuality. But besides that fringe element, who are really going to really get revved up about anti-idolatry, who else has a problem with them? What's wrong with them?
Well, I think for white nationalists, I mean, they already hate Jews, so they're not going to be taking any orders from Jews or
They're
consulting
not
them.
going to. That's what I. No, this is the thing. The Jews are going to clear this up in everyone's mind. Nobody's taking order from the Jews. The Jews are a library to go use. The Jews are right, a library. You have a question, you go to the Jews. But the Jews don't rule over your courts.
But even the idea that a Gentile might go to Jews to ask them anything is offensive to a lot of them.
Why is that offensive if the Torah said that this is the way it would work?
Well, okay, I don't know. I haven't spoken to any white nationalists about Noahidism, but the ones that... Okay, there's one I particularly remember, and he was rejecting the idea of Jews telling them anything to do at all. So why should we even use their thing? They're just going to reject the Noahide laws because they're Jewish. And there are also Muslims who say, I mean, you know my plan, which is to invite to get rabbis to rank the four Gentile religions, and then there'll be Muslims who say, we don't need them, we don't need to talk to them, we don't need their help. They're out of the game. It's that kind of attitude.
Yeah, I know but nobody can say that it's a bad idea. Everyone's just like, oh, well, they're not going to win. And I mean, betting against the Jews in, world conspiracies seems like a really bad bet to me. You know what I mean? Like, to really, you're betting against the Jews in the arena of world domination sounds real dumb. You know what I mean? Like, with such confidence. I mean, these Muslims and these white nationalists have such confidence that this great idea is going nowhere.
are you saying that the Jews will always win? Is that what you're saying?
Not always, but they're going to win over the Muslims and the Christians. They're going to win over everyone except for the radical polytheist, blasphemous, homosexual holdouts. I mean, eventually, eventually, I believe that they will be imposed by a very liberal order, but opposed by a very liberal order, or that, like, kind of red hot imperialistic, liberal something will come after them, but they're going to beat Christians and Muslims to the punch, definitely.
Well, I don't know why you're so sure about it, because I mean, the moment Muslims, get wind of this no-Hadism, they'll come out hammer and tongs and attack it.
No, yeah, but there's going to be too much. I know, but there's going to be too many people supporting it, and the more that they attack it, the more people are going to convert. I mean, they're going to be attacking it because they see that it has potential to destroy them. Yeah, you're right. Like, everyone is going to start going insane when they see. Well, they go insane in two directions. Number one, they go insane and they say, "Well, it has absolutely no way of competing with me, and I'm so safe from this." They get this insanity that they just think that they're just so safe. And then on the other side, that if it did start getting big, they would become like scared and they would start freaking out and start attacking it and just draw more attention to it. And everyone's going to be like, why is this triggering everyone so much? And the Jews are expecting that. The Jews know this is going to be triggering everybody, and they're going to use it to their advantage.
How?
How are they? Because everyone's going to be talking about it. Because people are going to like, why are you opposing this so much? What's so wrong about these laws that you're opposing them? Why these laws are good. So why are Muslims and white nationalists so opposed to them? Why? They have no reason to be. There's no reason to be. They're just.
Oh yes, and then they'll just say, "Oh, it's because they're anti-Semites."
Yeah.
Yes, and then I suppose Muslims say, "Oh, you won't use the Quran because you're Islamophobes," and then there'll be a fight about who has the higher or lower status.
Well, I told you why we wouldn't use the Quran. We just listed it all out. I gave you reasons why people wouldn't want the Quran, and they're not reasons just based on pure hatred. They're ideological positions that people take very seriously, like capitalism.
It's scraping the barrel, saying, "Oh, they can't own property," because there are plenty of Muslim countries
Yes,
that allow people to own
let's go through it
property.
again. Let's go through it again. You might not want a one-party system. You might want you don't want religious freedom for other people. You don't want to follow its terms of inheritance. You want to practice capitalism. There's no point in not eating pork. It's a ridiculous, thing. And do not accumulate mass wealth. That, okay, those are reasons why somebody doesn't want to live under the Quranic system, and that doesn't mean you hate Muslims.
Okay, but then you can say, "Oh, you're a capitalist exploiter. You're a usurer. You know, and an anti-Semite, and actually you're not forced to not eat pork if you're not a Muslim." Because that's the thing that distinguishes Muslims and non-Muslims. For the
No, but in a Muslim state, can non-Muslims eat pork?
Yeah, well, okay, in Malaysia, there's certainly a lot of pork.
I know, but they don't practice Sharia in Malaysia.
Well, I mean, they do have a form of Sharia, and it only applies to Malays.
I know, but it's not real Sharia. I mean, under real Sharia, Hindu temples wouldn't be able to be visible to the public, nor would, nothing like that could be visible. You couldn't have visible outward idolatry in your country.
Well, you see how widely. I mean, it's like how long is a piece of string? Because different people, different Muslims, different Muslim countries interpret the same verse in so many different ways. And in a way, it's helpful that there is so much disagreement because, should any country decide to adopt it themselves, they'll say, well, we'll just interpret the Quran in our own way, and nobody can stop us from interpreting in our own way.
I know, but I mean, but they could just do that with Noahidism too. I mean, they don't, like I've told you, you don't need the Jews. Like, if you really want your own Noahide state, just get a bunch of books written by Jews, read them, and implement it. And just, if you don't feel like going to the Jews directly, just read their books, and you'll become a scholar, become a Noahide scholar yourself. Look at what are you allowed to read. Find the scriptures you're allowed to read in the Talmud. You're allowed to read all of Tanakh. What are you allowed to read in other books, in the law books? Get all the scriptures all together that you're allowed to read, and read them and implement it. And you can do it that way, and you don't need to go to the rabbis.
But I think the problem is that whichever way you slice it, it's obvious that, if you're no-hide, you are accepting the authority of the Jews, even if it's theoretically. You'll need some kind of rabbinical endorsement, because if you can't even get one rabbi to endorse you, it means that, you won't have the authority you need. Well,
Well, you
for
can
the,
always find a rabbi to endorse you. I mean, no matter how crazy your position is, there's some rabbi out there that believes in what you believe.
yes, you can pay for the correct opinion, but anyway, even this, what you regard as a pure formality of getting a rabbi to endorse your kind of no-hide laws is that you still need a rabbi, right? And there will be some, many anti-Semites who will just bridle at this idea that they have to, get rabbinical approval, and
Yeah, but it's okay. But if that's your only problem with the system, that's stupid. You have this perfect system that's going to correct all of your problems, and your only problem with it is that you have to ask a rabbi about something every once in a while. Like, so you're just gonna deny paradise because you have to ask a Jew something.
Well, no, because I mean, it's certainly arguable that God, if He exists, will be really annoyed that you're going to go for this sort of rubbishy stuff that's being made up when the Quran has been revealed.
It hasn't been made up. It's Look,
It is.
the Torah told us that not everything was written in the Torah. Okay, it wasn't all. The judges of Israel had to make more laws. It was necessary in order for Israel to continue. So the judges made more laws. You are the one who's disobeying Torah. The Torah said the judges need to make more laws. They've made more laws, and you're just rejecting them and calling them man-made because you're an anti-Semite.
No, because the idea is that the Torah is actually the revealed word of God.
And
That
it said the revealed word of God said that
has to be interpreted by
no,
yes,
but that
rabbis.
the judges would add to it.
Yes, but the fact is that if you're a Gentile, you've already got your own revelation, and the only reason
No,
why.
you do not. No, the revelation is to continue listening to the judges who have been given the authority to adopt the Torah. That is the revelation. The revelation is not a whole new book. The revelation is just follow the judges.
So you're going to say that God never did reveal the Quran, and it's
No,
all fake.
the Quran is trying to rewrite it's trying to give Torah on its own terms rather than listening to Israel. It's just people that don't want to listen to the rabbis.
Yeah, well, a lot of Jews don't want to listen to their rabbis.
Okay, but not everyone. I'm just saying that these are people who don't want to listen to rabbis because they're anti-Semites.
Well, I think all these arguments can be dealt with quite easily, I suppose. I mean, but you
No, but
disagree.
they didn't want to listen to the rabbi, so they just fabricated a whole new religion, and they did a bad job at it. They didn't even they tried to distill the Torah for everyone, and that's not the way it was meant to be used. That's not the way the Torah is meant to be used. It's not meant to be distilled down into a set of rules that's a book just for Gentiles. It's supposed to be administered by judges.
Well, so is the Quran meant to be interpreted by the judiciary. So,
I know, but so you just don't like the Muslims didn't like the way the Torah set up the judiciary and said, "Here, you're in control," and the Muslims said, "Well, we don't like this judiciary." And so we're just going to create our own new system. You are the ones who left Torah. You're the ones who don't like Torah, and Torah is for everyone. Mujib almost lost his mind when I showed those scriptures that said the light of Torah would be for all of the nations, and that everyone would go climbing to the Jews asking for them to lead them. I mean, he almost had a conniption that this doesn't prove the Torah is for everyone. Yes, the Torah is for everyone. It's supposed to go through the Jews, and you just don't like that.
Well, it would be all right if the Jews were, morally upright people living in their own theocracy in Israel,
But
but we
no,
know
but
they're
the
not.
Orthodox Jews are fine. The Orthodox Jews are morally upright people doing everything right.
But
So there's
nobody
no
listens
need.
to them, so they must have done something
Well,
wrong.
the Noahides are listening to them. I don't care what the Jews do. There could be one rabbi and every other Jew be a secular Jew. If you have one rabbi that's willing to go out and teach the Gentiles, then you have Noahidism. And that one rabbi will become powerful with Noahide converts and supporters. The rabbis are about to become a lot more powerful than the secular Jews who have nothing but hatred from the Gentiles. And the rabbis are about to get all the power because the Gentiles are about to support them because they're conservatives.
Right. So, can you think of a prominent Noahide who is a thought leader in Noahidism, who's a Gentile?
Well, the movement is small. There's Gentile Noahides that promote things. I don't think they have mass followings. There are Gentiles who write. There are Gentiles who do not think that the rabbis are moving fast enough or are harsh enough, and there's Gentile leaders. Yes, they're not big enough yet, though. I mean, just
You
give it
can't think
some
of a single
time.
name, can you?
What?
You can't think of a single name. I mean, of a prominent.
I mean, Alan Cecil. I mean, I can think. I mean, Alan Cecil's not a huge leader. He has a website, and
Mhm.
people know who he is. I mean, in the Noahide circles, people know who Alan Cecil is. Academy of Hashem.wordpress.com. Um,
Right. Okay, I'll have a
Give
look
me
at
one
that.
second.
Alan Cecil.
Did you look it up?
Um, my computer was being a bit slow, and
Um, I mean, yeah, he doesn't think that the rabbis are strict enough or are not about imposing courts now, and they want to wait, and they're scared to rile up the Gentiles by talking about courts.
yeah, I mean, that sounds about right. So, I mean, the thing is, you do need thought leaders, and you need charismatic ones, and and ideas that will make people look again. Um,
Okay, well, okay, Gentiles are starting to do that, but Jews are doing it for them. Look at Tovia Singer. He's out. He's famous in the Noahide world. I mean, he's bringing people into Noahidism, and he's not a nobody, and he has charisma, and he has followers, and all this other kind of stuff. So I don't see why you don't think that, with someone like Tovia Singer trying to do this, why there won't be any success for it.
well, I suppose I don't think of him as charismatic because he's always, foaming at the mouth about the New Testament, which nobody cares about, and he even complains that the Christians he talks to doesn't, who been theologically trained have no idea what he's on about. Because he's saying, oh, because the Bible says this, and therefore, and it's like, no, there's no need for you to do that. You just accuse them of idolatry until they fall over, which they will soon. I mean, because
Well,
there is no defense. They have no defense against accusations of idolatry because most of them don't even understand it. And and then you tell them, and they sort of get it, and then they forget. and they think it doesn't matter because, you know, they're really idolaters themselves, even though they think they're atheists, because, well, I mean, they say that atheists are idolaters because they worship their own opinions, which is undeniable, really.
Well, I think you're one of these people, well, you more so than anyone else. You don't want the Noahide movement to look like it's going anywhere. You want it to look like it'll never get off the ground. I mean, right, you're invested in it looking inept. I'm saying it has a lot more power than you have.
Well, I mean, we'll see. I mean, I keep asking you to become a secular Koranist. I mean, it's always your option to, become an ex-secular Koranist, and I think if you did do it, then you would get, well, you would see what kind of reaction you get. And
It's not going to bring millions or hundreds of thousands of people into the secular Quranist movement
well, I
just
think
because
I don't mind extending an olive branch to gay people. I mean, if I could, okay, this is my plan. It would be great to have a gay man who's a secular Koranist, an unmarried mother, um, a Jew, a Christian, a Muslim, a Hindu, a Buddhist. I mean, that would be great. I mean, because it would tend to demonstrate that you don't have to be Muslim to be a secular Koranist.
the last time you catered to homosexuals, you lost your follower, John Vance. So I don't think it's a very good idea for
Well,
you to
he's
do
half
that.
crazy anyway. I prefer you because at least you're still around and you're still, reasonably consistent, unlike him. Because I think he's still veering between being Muslim and reading the New Testament for comfort, which he still does, I notice on his channel.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's like, aren't you supposed to be Muslim? Why do you keep reading, all the, Gospels? And in a way, he has no answer. I mean, sometimes he pops up and, we have a bit of an argument and then he just blocks me and disappears. So, he can't talk about these things properly, to the bitter end. Because, adopting hit and run tactics like that is a sign of insecurity and hopelessness. But you, at least, have been very consistent, and I'm grateful for that. But I'm saying that if you became a secular Koranist, I think you would get a lot of attention. And then if you don't like it, you can always say, oh, I've had enough of it. I don't, But I'm saying try it and see. You're not committed to anything. And since you mentioned John, I'll say that we used to have a lot of fun. We'd go and, win arguments in people's streams, and they'd hate us and they wouldn't let us on. But that was also part of the fun. And I was thinking we could do it together, and you, Vincent, I think you think like a lawyer, and I know a lot of people are not capable of doing that, and I think that's helpful, and I think you could actually be very helpful by becoming a secular Koranist because I just want people to know that my standards of morality are conveniently low. People aren't going to get thrown off tall buildings or stoned or anything like that. And if you could become a secular Koranist, then people might, take an interest. I mean, do you really mind which one wins?
Oh, well, yeah, no, I do mind. I would rather go against something that's really bad than something that's like half good, half bad. And so you can never really get rid of it. It plays both sides of the fence. So, it has
That's
good
why you
points
have to
and
be.
bad points. And then it's really hard to get rid of it because it's so blended and it's such a mixed bag that, you can never really get rid of it. Whereas if something is like just really, really, really bad, you can extricate it from society.
Well, you can see both sides of it because I think you need to experience it, uh, experience what it is like to be a secular Koranist and have people question you and see how you win the argument. I think you would enjoy the experience because you do think like a lawyer.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't necessarily want to be governed under the Quran.
Well, I and I just want to show you that it wouldn't be that bad even for gay people. And Mujahid was saying that too. He was saying, well, why would you want to be, executed by the Noahides when you can, be gay and be discreet about it in an Islamic state? I mean, I'm sure you don't think that there are no gay people at all in Muslim countries. I mean, they're allowed to
Well, but
exist.
I mean, they have to hide it. They can't really talk about it, and this kind of stuff, and it's not something that is viewed as being healthy. It's still viewed as something you have to hide. It's not right. There's something wrong with you. You know what I mean? Like, no, I'm not going to put up with that.
Well, you don't have to. I'm just saying you can be in both camps. I mean, okay, you can't really be. I mean, you wouldn't become a no-hide, would you? Would you become a no-hide? You
No,
wouldn't.
I wouldn't become a Noahide. I
But you
just,
can only, recommend that people become a no-hide.
yes,
Become a no-hide if you want to get rid of people like me. Is
yes,
basically your message.
yes.
But 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 then people will think you're crazy because it's a bit, I don't know, turkeys voting for Christmas. What you're doing.
Well, my hope is that it won't go that far. My hope is that people will wake up before it gets that bad. But if they don't wake up before it gets that bad, then I don't really care what happens to them. Then they're stupid and they deserve it.
Well, okay, what you could do is you can become a secular Quranist, and then all these no-hides will say, "Oh, well, you've betrayed us, and we hate you," and you can challenge them to a debate, in which you will win with secular
How am I going to
Quranism.
know? But I don't even believe in. I don't believe people want secular Quranism in the next 50 years because it's going to be too liberal for them. People are going to go in the opposite direction. Like, people are going to want something like a Handmaid's Tale or Handmaiden's Tale or whatever. Like, they're going to want that kind of shit. They're not going to want idolaters, blasphemers, and homosexuals running all around the place.
But okay, they're still too afraid to say anything because the culture is so globo homo, right? So
Yeah,
that
but the
but
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 the
if you
Noahites won't.
became if you as a gay man became a secular Quranist, then they'll be saying, oh, what's happening? Well, why is Vincent? We know he's gaily married, blah blah blah. But I think if you just encourage people to go no hide, you won't get as much interest as you know as you would if you became a secular Quranist. Now they would really perk up their ears and say, "What's going on? Why is doing Vincent, doing this?" And you would get. And the thing is, you have a direct line to me. I am your regular streaming partner. We've been doing this for quite a while, and um, you know. You really do have access to the top as far as secular Quranism goes, and also, I mean, rabbis have been known to come to my channel, and I do at least get to talk to them, unlike people like Adam Green and other anti-Semites. And you might even like secular Quranism just because you think like a lawyer, because there are all these rules and all these narratives, and you can, um, and I mean, why would you want things to get so bad that you want Noahidism comes in to execute LGBT people? Surely you don't want that. But you can at least sort of go present yourself as a secular Quranist, and then people will say, oh, but she's gonna do this to you and that to you and whatever, and then you can say no because blah blah and blah blah and blah blah, and I think you'll
No,
just have.
because that's that's not how you bring in extremist views into the world. I want extremism.
Yeah, yeah,
I
but
want
people
like
think people think secular Quranism is already extreme. You were saying
no,
at
they
the
don't.
beginning.
Secular Quranism is very unextreme. Secular Quranism is like very, very watered down Islam. It's like Islam without teeth.
But I don't. Okay, so why won't anybody talk to me if it's so scary and so well?
Well, because I do think that it has potential in that I think it has some potential right now at this moment, but I don't think in the future it does. I think that look, I think that when you read online what people are posting and where the youth are going and what radical kind of directions they're going in, secular Quranism is just not radical enough for what's coming down the pipe.
Okay, okay. Even if you want people to become radical, you have to, well, you have to get to the middle ground to get to the other side, to the opposite extreme. So so you can see yourself as a, if you can see yourself as a leader, you have to slowly lead these people in. They can't just come over you,
Well,
they'll
no,
come with you.
cults. People violently convert to cults all the time. Like people just have rapid conversions into extremist cults all the time. ISIS does it. I mean, what their face is? The Islamic terrorists do it all the time. They just go online and preach something radical, and they get like thousands of converts. You know what I mean? It would be better for me to go online and promote radical Noahidism and make thousands of converts than to go on there like blah 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 like liberal Islam. Like, who wants liberal Islam?
Oh, don't call it liberal Islam. Call it secular Quranism. So you
I know, but
you
it's liberal Islam. I mean, it's like it's watered down, really watered down Islam. With I told you, without any of the teeth, without any of the things that would actually change society, like no idolatry, no blasphemy, no
well,
homosexuality.
well,
Like it actually.
I think it's pretty radical to propose the corporal punishment of unmarried parents. I think that a lot of people will not like the idea. Maybe that's why white nationalists don't, because they're mostly illegitimate or unmarried parents. Maybe that's what freaks them out. I mean, the illegitimacy rate is 40% in America, and it's probably higher now because that was that statistic was published a few years ago, and it's over 50% in the UK, and probably around that in the rest of Europe. So it is getting pretty bad, and as you know, New Zealand has an unmarried mother who's prime minister. So they,
Mhm.
it's already here. All the signs of matriarchy and collapse and dementia. So, look, all I'm saying is you don't have to stay there. You can just dip your toes in and see what kind of reaction you get. See the kind of.
No, I don't. I don't. I look. I don't want. If secular Quranism has any appeal, then I don't. I don't. It doesn't behoove me for secular Quranism to become. To become. I don't want gay secular Quranists. I don't want this like corrupted uh Frankenstein monster. Like I want something little like pure and clean and fresh and bold and like and radical. I don't want gay liberal Islam. That's not what I'm looking for.
Well, you can say that after you've tried it, right?
Yeah, but I already know what Islam is. I don't need gay liberal Islam. I don't need. I know what I could imagine what Islam is minus anti-idolatry, anti-blasphemy, anti-homosexuality. I mean, I can. I mean, it's actually really not much of anything when you think about it, except for a bunch of like ideas for you to follow in your life. I mean, the Quran, most of it is just like good advice, like, oh, don't do this, don't do that. It's not like, most of it isn't like if you do this you're going to get killed, if you do that you're going to get killed. Most of it, like, seems to me like 90% of the Quran is just like advice about how to live your life, and then the other whatever percent is about setting up your government or whatever, like how to run your government. But it just seems like there's really, without any actual harsh Sharia, Islam doesn't really have any power.
Well, I think it's harsh enough I mean, I'm sure unmarried parents will not be, approving of my plans to treat them as sex offenders. I mean, that's radical enough to begin with. I mean,
Okay, Claire, if you think if that's the most radical you're gonna get, then I don't think you're the future. If that's the most, yeah, if that's the most radical you're gonna get, then I don't think you're really. Look, people want radical. The reason why the
who have you
Republicans
been
can't win.
talking to? I'm sure there's no one you've actually been speaking to who said, "Oh, I want to execute them all everywhere," and blah blah.
That want to execute homosexuals? Of course there are.
Well, they would be saying that to you, to your face, in real life, using their real name. It's all, anonymous trolls who hate you, right? I mean,
Okay, first of all, there's lots of people in this world that want to execute homosexuals. Don't get that out of your mind. Like, somehow we live in a time where that impulse in the human race has like been extinguished. It's not. A lot of people wish they could kill homosexuals, and a lot of people might not actually think about killing homosexuals, but they do think that it's very bad and very wrong, and they would at least maybe consider punishments for it. Maybe not execution, but maybe a fine, maybe jail time, maybe something like that. A lot more people would consider that. And then there's a lot of people who don't think it's right, and they might not want it to be punished, but they'll just go along with the crowd. And if there's enough people saying, well, yeah, there needs to be some kind of punishment for homosexuality, then they're not going to fight it. Maybe they might not get up and say, yeah, we should kill homosexuals, but they're not going to go out of their way and start fighting it and being like, oh, well, we have to stop this anti-homosexual movement in society. No, they don't think homosexuality is a good thing anyway.
okay, but at the moment they haven't been riled enough to say these things, and the culture and the mood is still pro-gay, and
But it's changing. It's changing very quickly. Let the younger generation come in, and you'll see.
So the future, as you see it, is to promote no-hardism, and you are members of Facebook groups who do this.
Yeah, I've joined Noahide Facebook groups. Yeah,
How many are there?
tons. I mean, I don't know. I'm probably in about 15 of them.
15 of them. Can you add me?
Yeah.
Th-
Uh-huh.
Thanks. I mean, I think I am a member of one, but it seems a bit quiet, or maybe it always deletes all my posts, so there's never any interaction. Um, yeah, I mean, they don't. There's sort of not much going on in my no hide group.
Yeah, no, I go into them. But yeah, I mean, the point is to kind of, I mean, there's also the point of becoming an accelerationist because it's not moving fast enough for me. I mean, my whole point is that the Jews want this to be a slow boil where the water gets hot so slowly that nobody notices it. So I'm just trying to, amp up the fire. Yeah, I'll agree right now the Noahide movement is not the most like vivacious, um, vivid community on the face of the earth. It's not, but that's dangerous to me that it's moving so slowly, because then it has to, it has time to trick people and deceive people, and people get, uh, you know, uh, under people's skin, and it seems innocuous, and it seems benign and non-threatening. But if it starts like really revving up really quickly, people are going to notice it.
Yeah, well, I'm a member of the B'nai Noah community, and they don't really say anything much. And I mean, it Ask Noah community with Michael Schulman, right?
Hmm.
He's the one that we've both been in touch with, and nothing. It's very, very highly censored because we know he's an Islamophobe. So,
He's not an Islamophobe. He just said that Islam is simply non-idolatrous, but not Noahide, is what his thing is.
yeah, so he gets a best of both positions because imagine the rabbi saying, "Oh no, no, these Gentiles have never had a Noahide religion. That's just terrible. Low people who've never won't even understand a fraction of what we're saying because they're all idolaters." Including the Muslims. I mean, they wouldn't say that because, well,
Well,
it would be
yeah, but
even more
okay,
insulting than saying
look,
Christianity, is
yeah,
idolatry.
Claire, you blame everything on Islamophobia. Just because you say Islam is not idolatry, but because Maimonides said it is inventing a new religion, it is still not permissible. That does not mean you're an Islamophobe. That just means you're following what Maimonides said.
Well, Maimonides had a bad experience with some Muslim rulers, so he's bound to be Islamophobic. Um,
He wasn't Islamophobic. He worked with Muslims. They were his patients. He never said anything. He didn't say it was idolatry. He just said it, but it's true. You don't need to be hateful to know that creating a new religion is illegal. That's not hate. That's just following the
yeah,
Torah.
yeah, and the only person allowed to create a religion is God, right? And the Muslims say that their Quran comes from God. So,
But
so,
it
so that
didn't.
that would be the
It's just
Muslim
they didn't want
answer.
to. They just didn't want to follow Torah, so they made up something new.
Yeah, but the Torah has 36 capital offenses, and
Oh, what? So you don't want 36 capital offenses, so you're
no,
just going to
no,
make
no,
something else up?
even Jews don't want 36 capital
No, but they didn't
offenses.
go make something else up.
No, no, the thing is, look, I've spoken to Jews and they don't want to talk to me either because I've basically seen through their whole narrative, which is full of holes. So they can't deny that there are 36 capital offences. It's not my new idea. It was from Maimonides, I think, and it's like it was their numbering. It was their classification. There is a list of how you're to execute all these different people committing all these different capital offences, and they know they haven't been executed for it because they've been in a diaspora for about 2,000 years. So, they have a problem there in having any kind of moral authority because they haven't been living in their own theocracy for about 2,000 years. As
Okay, well, there's Muslims who don't live in Muslim lands, and number one, don't live under the Sharia, and number two, there's plenty of Muslim countries that are Muslim majority countries, and they still don't implement Sharia
yeah,
because they
but
don't
the
want it.
point is that there are six Islamic theocracies, Vincent, and okay, a lot of
That don't
Muslim.
implement full Sharia because they don't want full
Yeah, but
Sharia because they don't like full Sharia.
well, I think Afghanistan and Iran and Saudi and Yemen and Mauritania and I forget the other one. They think they are doing it properly. I'm sure they tell their people they're doing it properly. But anyway, the point is, whatever we think of the quality of their observance, the fact is that officially they are acknowledged to be theocracies, and Sudan, and they exist. While the Jews can't even claim that because they're just an American colonial outpost in the Middle East.
Well, I mean, there's a lot fewer Jews, and I'm sorry, but I mean, with Jews, the fact that they have their own nation at all, that's really amazing. And okay, it's not a theocracy because it does have theocratic things. It has chief rabbis that have control over all marriages, births, marriages, divorces, and adoptions. And their rulings are state rulings. And they're not officially a secular country either. So
Yeah, are secular. That's why all these
no, they're not. Not
Iran.
officially, not on paper. They're not a secular country. They're a
No, no,
Jewish
it's on
state.
paper. Yes, they
It's
call
not.
it
They
a
don't have a
Jewish.
constitution. Israel doesn't have a constitution, so this way they can't they don't have to say they're not a theocracy. If they have a constitution, they would have to say whether or not they're a theocracy. They don't have a constitution because they don't want to say if they're a theocracy or not because they want it both ways.
Well, it's mixed, but as far as I know, people call Israel a secular state. Even Jews call Israel a secular
But
state.
it's not.
Why do you say that it's not? It's got a mix. I mean, okay,
Because it has a chief rabbinate. How does a secular state have chief rabbis that have political control over the country?
okay. If you're going to ask this question about the Israel, you can ask the same question about Britain. I mean, there are bishops in the House of Lords, but you know the
That's different.
Archbishop
It's
of
different than having,
Canterbury has
there's no, look, the Church of England has no state control over anything in the government.
yeah. So but anyway, Anglicanism is the official religion of Britain. So they basically messed everything up, called everything by the wrong name, and confused everybody so they can, do this thing of saying yes and no at the same time. And everybody's happy to be fobbed off because they can't contemplate the horror of having to clear up that mess. I mean, apart from me. And I have a few ideas about how to clear it up. Because they're deliberately confusing everybody and saying yes and no at the same time. Can you just excuse me for a minute? I need to go and do something.
Me too. Just give me 1 second. I'll be right back. We'll be right back. I'm just making coffee. She'll be back in a second. Who's here? Okay, yeah. Well, Mansking said Israel's judiciary is completely separate from the rabbinate. There's chief rabbinates, though, that have control over marriage, divorce, and adoption. That's not secularism if your chief rabbis have control over any sector of your political government.
So, yes, I mean, nominally they allow a few, rabbis and, bishops to, sit in in parliament, but actually they have very little power, is what I'm saying. The only way to sort of tell whether your country is secular or a theocracy is, is what kind of laws are in place. And we know that in the UK, they have gay marriage and they promote transgenderism and gay marriage in primary school. So we know that this country is really secular, even though it masquerades as a Christian country. I mean, we don't really know when Christendom ended, right? There was a time when Westerners talked about, Christendom and that kind of thing. But when did it end? There's no death certificate. Unless somebody wrote a book, which actually somebody did. Somebody called Malcolm Muggeridge, he wrote a book, The End of Christendom, because he sort of noticed that nobody followed Christian principles. Hardly anybody was a Christian, and the Christians he found really weren't saying very Christian things. So, we don't even know what we really are anymore because we haven't even thought to take a checklist of, it's like signs of life. You want to check if a comatose patient is alive, and you can say, the brain stem is still alive, even though that patient will probably never, get up again or say another word. And then when the brain stem finally is dead, then it says, oh yeah, brain stem death. I mean, that's the end. But yeah, there is an in-between stage, and people will just leave it for ages and ages until I guess they need to acknowledge the situation. And I'm saying we need to acknowledge the situation now. And if you want to be an accelerationist, Vincent, you can, well, just for the fun of it, you should do it, because then people will take notice. I mean, if you don't mind being, more notorious and people just, not wanting to talk to you or whatever. Because I think, what I have is actually quite a frightening idea because, you frighten the white nationalists. They haven't got a better idea. I've been doing this for years. They still have, they've had all that time to think about it and they can't come up with anything better. And then you get the neurotic people like Jay Walker who can't make up his mind whether Christianity is kaput or not. They are literally neurotic. They need to see a therapist because they're saying crazy things like, oh, it's raining and not raining at the same time in the same place, because that's really what they're doing. And you get these signs of neurosis when people say, yeah but no, which is a very English thing to say, which actually women say. But recently, somebody else was complaining to me that, oh, don't you hate it when people say, yeah, but no? It's like, well, why would you even say such a thing? Can you imagine why anybody would want to say such a thing? Without,
Because, well, yeah, well, they don't want to look. They're caught, and they don't want to be caught, so they don't want to give you a yes or a no answer. So then, they're off the hook, and and
yes. I
yeah,
mean,
they're being disingenuous. They're being intellectually disingenuous. They know that they're in a position where they cannot give an official answer because it'll make them look bad.
exactly. So, Duvid, he goes on about his multiple truth hypothesis, right?
Yeah.
Well, it's just a more sophistication version of yeah, but no. Or if you want to go back a bit further, George Orwell's doublethink, which is all about, saying yes and no at the same time, but getting away with it.
Yeah,
But the
I
thing is,
know. I don't know.
you will actually go mad. Your society will eventually go mad and destroy itself because if every time anybody asks a question, the answer they get is yeah but no. They will go crazy. Eventually they will just start killing the person that says yeah but no. And what I like to think I'm trying to do is give clarity, and then it's making your mind up time because we can't carry on like this. We can't just not do not answer questions, not make decisions. And what we can do is to help clarify the situation. And I don't, okay, it's never been my intention to make people who don't marry feel bad, but I think it's necessary for people who do get married, who do have children, who pay for them and try and bring them up properly, a privileged position over non-parents and unmarried parents. I mean, what's wrong with that? Isn't that fair enough? And even gay people can kind of understand that even gay people need to be born from heterosexual unions, and if they're born, they would like their parents to look after them properly and not divorce each other at the drop of a hat, and stay together for the sake of the children. I mean, I think even gay people can see that, even though they might never want to marry anybody of the opposite sex and have children with them. But you seem to be interested in children. But anyway, I mean, as an American, wouldn't you like America to carry on?
Not in the way that it is. I think that America needs to go under a very radical transformation if it's going to survive. And I don't want a Noahide America, but
So have a secular Koranist America, which will
no. Well,
comfortably
like
accommodate
that's
you.
yeah, but that's uh, that's health elixir mixed with poison. I would just rather bring in the full toxin so that like people just rejected. I mean, people are not going, secular Koranism is like a Trojan horse. It seems kind of open and liberal, but then once you let it in, it's really, promoting the Quran. And once you start promoting the Quran, you get closer to Islam, and but it's a slow kill. It's a slow kill. It's like this. I don't want to deal with slow kill. I don't like
Well,
that kind of fight.
okay. It doesn't matter what kind of kill you want. You're moving towards somewhere. So if in your mind you see yourself moving from point A to point B, okay, so point B is no-hidism, and in between A and B is secular Quranism. You have to pass through it anyway, and you're kind of halfway there, and that's why you're talking to me. You're already, you're on the path, and you're talking to me, and we can talk a bit more, but adopt if you become a supporter, then you will be challenged, and part of the challenge would be to give your ideas further prominence.
Why don't you be the intermediate for me? Why don't I be the radical and you be the secular Quranist?
Well, that's what I'm doing. I mean, I like to think that I'm always the more reasonable person, and you're the, crazy guy with the extremist ideas and your evil plans.
Yeah, but you still need extremists. Even if you have a plan to bring them over slowly, you still need the extremists out there preaching the extreme message.
Yeah, and that's why we need each other, Vincent.
Well,
But I'm saying, you don't, okay, there's no way that I can make you, keep you a secular Koranist if you don't like to be one. But I'm saying, you have to say, well, secular Koranist is so boring. I know, because I've tried it and it doesn't get me anywhere and blah, blah, and I have to go the extra mile and that's no hidism. I mean, that could be your narrative, couldn't it?
I already know I have to go the extra mile. Secular Quranism is like, yeah, but then I'm gonna be like promoting the Quran and
And then the Muslims will love you because they can be so friendly to gay people
oh,
who are.
I don't want to be friends with fucking Muslims. They're horrible. Oh, they are so just disingenuously, ugh. They're gross. I don't want to be friends with Muslims. They gross me out.
But what about Jews? You prefer Jews?
Um, no. Um, no, but I think Jews make better enemies than Muslims do.
Well, the thing is, a lot of Jews are afraid of Muslims because there's sort of so many more than they are, right? And they keep coming in. They keep coming into the West, and it's unsettling for Jews.
Yeah, well, it is unsettling, I'm sure, for them. And, well, because I'm sure that the religious ones don't want I'm sure they could see them becoming Muslim and not becoming Noahides. And so I guess they are unsettled by it. And I don't want to see people becoming Muslims either. And I just posted up on Facebook, I said, I mean, I have been noticing, I know you've been noticing it too, that there's this growing alliance between Islam and the white nationalists where they both hate global homo, so that they're going to unite, and there's more and more appreciation for Islam in the right, and not really. I don't want them going. I want them going Noahide because Islam. I don't want to fight Islam. I don't want to fight Islam. It's it's like a big dumb trashy piece of shit. Like I'd rather fight Jews who are a little bit more clever and a little bit more sophisticated, and or let's say way more clever, way more sophisticated. Um than just like a dumb Neanderthal war
I
with.
don't think Mujahid is dumb. I think he gives quite good arguments. He's quite scholarly in his um, answers and arguments, don't you
Well,
think?
even then, I'm sorry, Jews are just more refined than Muslims are.
Do
It's
you know that Jews actually disengage? They disengage from Muslims. It's sort of like they're happy to deal with Christians because they think Christians are stupid. But, for Muslims, it's like, oh, I mean, okay, so I know a Muslim who complained to me that when he was trying to engage with with the Jew said, "Are you Muslim?" And when he said yes, the Jew disengaged. So the Jews are also afraid of the arguments that Muslims might use. And, oh yes, and Judas was saying to me yesterday that he was warned by his rabbis to avoid me because I preach false doctrine.
how did his rabbis know he talks to you?
I don't know. I mean, he probably asked a few questions based on my ideas, and then they probably said, "Where'd you get that idea?" Blah, blah, blah. I mean, I didn't ask in such detail. And half Galician. I don't know if you know him. He's this I think this Jewish stockbroker from New York, and he said the same thing. It's like the rabbis are complaining about me, and they have no answer to what I say about Ernie Darkat. It's like the goose is already cooked. The goose of their European ancestors have been cooked because they've lived and died as citizens of of cities that have gone astray because they live in Christendom.
Um,
Well, I don't know. I mean, if you can find a proper rabbinical answer to my question, I'd like to hear it. But
what's the question?
pardon?
What is the question?
The question that I asked them is there are 36 capital offences in the Torah, and one of them is nidaka, the capital offence of living, of being a citizen of a city that has gone astray. So just living, so being a citizen of a city that has gone astray,
Okay, well, I
transitive.
told you the rabbis have the right to elaborate on the Torah. So if they've said that in this period of time that law doesn't apply, then it doesn't apply.
Yeah, but there'll be people who disagree. But anyway, I mean, this
Okay,
is
but
what
it
it
doesn't
says. I mean,
matter.
they can try and interpret it well. Oh, it doesn't mean that you have to be a proper citizen, and a citizen is blah blah blah. And not, they can do all that, but they're not even trying, as far as I can see, because they're just
Well, they probably already
avoiding the
said it
subject.
because that's probably a very stupid question to them. Because I mean, they have the authority to alterate the Torah when it's necessary. They're not in Israel; they're out in the diaspora. And I mean, they made all different kinds of ways to get around these kinds of things.
Yeah, but they won't answer the question about.
Because they've answered it because they said so. That's the answer.
So the answer is what?
Because they said so.
Okay, no, I was looking for, how come, how are you sure that your Jewish ancestors who lived and died in Christendom are not in hell, or, had a post mortem beheading
Because
for.
the rabbis got together and made a decision that at that time, during that period of time, that prohibition was not in place. Just like they've come together, the rabbis came together and said, well, polygamy is no longer allowable. The Old Testament does not outlaw polygamy in any way, shape, or form. It permits it, and never is it abolished. The rabbis abolished polygamy.
Yes, yes, I suppose they had to because they lived in Europe, which didn't allow
Yeah,
it.
exactly. So if you're allowed to abolish things, you're allowed to abolish whatever you want.
Yes, but you see, it doesn't. Okay, so all right, maybe Well, even if you were Muslim and lived in the West, I mean, the fact is that you know, if you had more than one wife, you'd be committing the crime of bigamy. So it doesn't matter what your rabbi or your imam says, you're going to be committing a crime. And I guess as a rabbi and as an imam, you wouldn't be telling people to go ahead and break the law because it would get them into trouble and get you into trouble.
Well, that's not why they did it, number one. Well, first, I just want to say that uh, imams, don't, might tell their people not to practice polygamy in the country, but that doesn't mean they're not telling them not to try to change the laws. I think that any Muslim who moves into the West, who has any desire to turn the West into an Islamic theocracy, has the desire to legalize polygamy. That's just something that it would come with, and just make it legal. But they didn't necessarily do it. The Jews didn't make it illegal necessarily because the Europeans didn't like it. I mean, they had their own issues for doing it, but they did it. They made what was not illegal illegal. So they can also make, if they can make what is not illegal illegal, they can make what is illegal legal. So they can say, well, during this period of time, you may stay in the study in a city that has gone to idolatry, and that's it, Claire. And it's a lot
Yeah, but
better
nobody
and
would really
easier to have
believe
an
in it.
open.
I mean, even Jews who want to think of their ancestors as having gone to heaven would sort of think, oh, well, we didn't even know about it. We never talked about it, but obviously, it's there in the Torah, and we can't deny it. And our rabbis have been lying to us for centuries. Our poor old ancestors, who didn't know, and they've all gone, and after
No
they
Jew
died,
believes
they
in
were
that. No,
beheaded.
no,
Okay,
no
yeah, because they
rabbis
don't really
out.
believe. They're being hypocrites, right? Because if you're really orthodox, you'd have to believe it was a literal word of God. But oh, it's just a story. We don't really believe it.
No, that it's not that they don't believe it. The Orthodoxy have just legislated it out of existence for this period of time. It doesn't apply.
No, no, because obviously they didn't want it to mean, oh, if we live in Christendom, our immortal souls are doomed, and so have been the immortal souls of our ancestors who lived and died as a citizen of cities who've gone astray. I mean, they don't want to think that. They sweep it under the carpet. It's understandable, but the point is
They
that.
already took care of it. They don't really care. They took care of it.
Yeah, but I'm saying, well,
Uh,
they should think about it now because they can do all kinds of things and pretend it doesn't say whatever it says. But the fact is, it's all there, and it's Maimonides. It's Maimonides who codified the whole thing, and articulated the 36 capital offences, and Maimonides is a kind of god to them. So they're in trouble, and I'm saying they can escape all this horror by becoming Muslim, and they can't deny it. That's why they don't want to talk to me either. And that's
Look,
why
their
they
answer.
call me a propagator of false doctrine. But what I'm saying to anti-Semites is that I can upset Jews using their own rules. I use their rules against them, and they can't deny it because denying what I say would be denying what Maimonides said. So actually, I'm a genius, and you should hang out with me a bit more and be a secular Koranist, and you might go far.
Well, I don't think secular Quranism is going very far, Claire.
All right, but that's because people are just too scared to, go the whole hog. I mean, Duvid complains that he gets all kinds of criticisms and, negativity where through being associated with me, and I was kind of wondering, well, who would be giving? And it just occurred to me it might be other Jews saying don't talk to her because she's going to, well, raise these issues and you won't have any answers, and so well, I just invite you to consider the power of my arguments.
I think, look, um, I think it's easier to convince Jews. I think it's easier to convince Jews that certain laws are not applicable today.
Yeah, I'm
Than
sure they'd be very happy to believe it because it gets them off the hook. And I'm putting them on the hook again. And I'm telling Muslims how to put these Jews on the hook. And that's why
but you're
these
not. You
Jews
don't
won't
have
talk
them
to
on the hook. They
Muslims.
don't. They don't have. You don't have them on the hook because they're given the right to manipulate Torah in order to make it work for the time that they're living in. They're allowed to elaborate and reduce and subtract and add and all
Yeah,
this
for
other
the
kind
same
of.
reason that a lot of white nationalists won't talk to me. I mean, a lot of rabbis won't talk to me because they just haven't got the answers and they don't want to be seen, fumbling around for these answers. And if they want to deny what I say, they would be denying Maimonides and people like that. So David says, I only get bad attention and negative feedback from dealing with you. And I don't think it's sort of white nationalist saying to David, oh, how could you talk to that Claire Khaw? I'm sure it'd be, all these rabbis, these Jews, saying, how could you be talking to Claire? Because she promotes false doctrine and she's going to undermine your faith in Judaism and blah, blah, and turn you into a Muslim or at least a secular Koranist. Anyway, that's my theory. But yes, you were saying at the beginning, you're wondering why people didn't want to talk to me. I'm saying, because of the power of my arguments, they can't find a proper answer that would convince any reasonable bystander. Yeah, and then he called me toxic.
Who called you toxic, David?
Yes.
I don't understand why they find you to be so toxic. I mean, I
Because
bet.
because I threaten their belief system. I'm telling Jews that well, their ancestors have basically had to endure all these post-life executions because they weren't executed for their you know transgressions in this life because they were living in a Gentile country where the 36 capital offences wouldn't apply. And I'm saying, well, if they didn't apply during their Jewish lifetime, they would apply in their Jewish afterlife because God never said, oh, don't worry about it, Jews. I've forgotten all about it. Don't worry about the thing. I mean, he might have said, well, you needn't worry about it if you convert to Islam. You see.
But they're not worried about it.
Well, if they're atheists, then they wouldn't worry. I mean, just as all these Christians claiming to believe in God, and I say, well, what about your idolatry? And they have no answer. It's like, you have to prove that Christianity is not idolatry, and you can't because you worship a man. And then they come back with, oh, but it's not idolatry to worship Jesus if he is God. And the next question is, well, how is Jesus God? And they have no answer, so they run away. But what I'm trying to say is that these arguments are unanswerable. They have, they can go through their Talmud, they have no answer. And if we are persistent and keep asking them these questions, they will eventually have to cave in and say, well, maybe there is a way for Jews to become Noahide by becoming Muslim. And, maybe that's the only get out clause if we care about our Olam Haba, which is another word for afterlife.
Um,
Oh, Vincent, come on.
no, well, I mean, I didn't want us to go that way. I told you I'd rather have Noahidism as an enemy than Islam because who you're fighting kind of you know, will sharpen you in a different
Yes,
direction.
yes, okay, okay. How about this? You become a secular Quranist, and you will get some attention, and then you can say, "Oh, secular Quranism is no good. Let's go full no hide," and
But
you have that option.
I'm already at that stage. I don't need to become a secular Quranist
Yeah,
to.
but it will drum up a lot of interest if you do
So how
become.
long do I have to stay a secular
I
Quranist for?
don't know. I mean, well, for however long as
A
people,
day?
you might get people, people inviting you on their shows and say, "Sure, Cora, how could you? How could you become a secular Quranist? Don't you know she's going to abolish gay marriage and blah blah?" And then you can say, "Well, it's better than, but she'll have made arrangements for me and my, my husband, the legal instruments to allow same sex couples to blah blah. I mean, that would be helpful for me anyway.
I'll be right back. I'll be right back.
All right. So I'll read the chat. Mantis King says Islam is definitely going far. Well, I agree. I don't know how I said jaywalker, Amanda. Yes, Mantis King, all their sins would be forgiven. That's the whole idea. And the thing is, if Jews were being rational, they would convert. But it's sort of but mum and dad would be mad, and the rabbi would be mad, and my Jewish wife would be mad, and I understand that they would have these considerations, but they can just start talking about it. I'm not expecting everybody to cave in immediately. But all these arguments are very powerful and prey on the mind. When people get frightened, when they get sick, they get old, they'll be thinking about these things a lot more. And if things get worse in the West, more and more people will be thinking about how did we get here? Is it because we were bad people who didn't follow God's laws? And of course, the answer is yes. It was because you disobeyed God's laws, and God, if He exists, created a universe in which the sin is its own punishment, and if you are suffering, the best way to stop suffering is to stop sinning. If suffering is punishment for sin, and you buy into the whole system of, sin and punishment. And Tinkle Tick asks, if you're not religious, why are you doing this? People keep asking me that. Okay, I guess I have an active imagination. Either God exists or He doesn't. And if God exists, He would be very cross at Jews and Christians and Muslims. He'd be all angry at Jews for not being light unto nations, lighting the way of Gentiles away from the idolatry of Christianity towards Islam. He would be angry with Christians for 2,000 years of idolatry and blasphemy, and he would be annoyed at Muslims for never obeying chapter 18 verse 4 of the Quran, which says, admonish those who claim that God has begotten a son. No, nobody has been doing what they were supposed to do. Vincent? Yes, and Mantis King very helpfully points out to Tinkle Tink that I am trying to save Western civilization from degeneracy, and I'm just asking for a little bit of help from Vincent. Well, I don't know what sort of answer you want from me, Tinkle Tink. I've already told you that I see theology as the best way
I'll be
of
back, Claire.
framing the narrative. Because, okay, a lot of people, a lot of activists, they go on about all these conspiracy theories, vaccines, the Jews did it, and the very long stories full of boring detail that nobody wants to listen to. But if you frame the narrative in the way that I have, everybody instantly understands it, because even atheists understand the nature and attributes of God. So you don't have to, explain it again. It's sort of, yes. They know God. What God is supposed to do, but they just don't believe in Him. But they know. Just as somebody who knows what a unicorn is, you have to know what a unicorn or a leprechaun or a fairy or a ghost is, before you can deny the existence of these things.
So that doesn't prove God exists.
But it is enough that the concept of God exists.
Yeah, the concept of God, but so does the concept of ghosts and leprechauns and unicorns.
Yeah, exactly. But why do people don't fight each other about? It goes so far. It's not about just believing in God. It's sort of like you have to have the correct conception of God, or I'll fight you to the death. Which is what people did too. It's like, oh, you don't think of God in the right way, so we're going to fight you. I think it's the Cathars. Have you heard of the Cathars?
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Pope Innocent apparently waged a holy war on them because they didn't think of God in a correct way, because they thought of God as kind of, I don't know. It's sort of a dualist. I think it's like there's a fight between good and evil, and that's how it's the same as the Zoroastrians, and the correct classical theological view of God is that God is okay. The Jewish view is that Satan is the prosecuting counsel of God, which is interesting, isn't it? Did you know that?
I didn't think there was Satan in Judaism.
Well, the Book of Job is all about God and Satan, the thing, having an argument. I think what the story was that there's Job. He's really happy. He's such a good man. He's got so much well, children and wealth and property, and Satan said to God, well, of course he's happy. You've given him all he wants. Let's see how he we'll have to see what he becomes when he suffers. Will he still believe in you, God? And God said, okay, the bet's on. That's basically the story of Job, right? And then there are all these questions of why, did God do this to me? What did I do wrong? And Job's wife say, you should just curse God and die. And
Yeah.
but he didn't, and then eventually he was restored. But so the Jews have this kind of idea that Satan is just the agent provocateur of God, because the whole idea is that God gave us these laws. We all know about them. We just choose not to follow them, and Satan just goes around, trying to get people into trouble. But they have no excuse because they already know what they were not supposed to do. But they, and if they chose to do it, then they'll just get punished in the afterlife.
Well, I'm trying to look up
Which is why, just to finish, that the Lord's Prayer, kind of acknowledges this, because there is this verse that says, praying to God, lead us not into temptation, and if you look at, and you think, well, why would God want to lead us into temptation? And you think, well, maybe heaven's full or something. He doesn't want too many people crowding it out or something. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But there
Well,
are many clues. There are many clues about, it's like he's told us the rules. We choose to disobey them, and there will be consequences. Because not even someone from Papua New Guinea can say, "Oh, we've never heard of the Jews. We've never heard of the Abrahamic God." So even as they have their own little, tribal religion, they would know about, the God of the Jews, the God of Israel. because it's such a powerful story. Because okay, we can at least acknowledge, I think, that the Abrahamic God is the most powerful God conceivable, and therefore. Human history has been, the Christians saying we'll just take the God of Israel and use him for our purposes of government, which is basically what the Romans did, and maybe that was what the Muslims did. Seeing that, well, Christianity isn't working very well, maybe they can come up with a better version of a book of rules.
I'm just looking at this thing on Satan and Judaism. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I mean, at least I can see that.
Oh, okay. Read it out.
It's a lot. I mean, it's a long article. I was just going through it,
right.
but yeah, they were saying that he just embodies evil and stuff like that. I know he's different than Jewish versus Christian concepts.
Yeah, I just remember this cartoon, Tom and Jerry cartoon, in fact, and I remember there's a sort of the devil on each side of Tom's shoulder, and the and I think that idea is actually Islamic, because it doesn't, the idea is not in Christianity at all, but actually in the Quran, saying that there will be Satan whispering in your ear and blah blah blah, to do this thing, but you shouldn't do it anyway. So you don't really have any excuses.
Mm-hmm. I'll be right back. Jamo? You put it out?
Mantis King says Muslims have been warning people of polytheism, and especially Christians. But okay, to do it properly, I'm afraid Muslims would have to warn formally in writing the Pope and the Archbishop of Canterbury, and ask them how and why Christianity is not idolatry and blasphemy, and when they predictably say Christianity is not idolatry and blasphemy, if Jesus is God, you have to come up with a follow-up question, which is, how is Jesus God? And then they'll all get quiet because they have no authority for the proposition that Jesus is God. I suppose I have to explain to you how I've solved the mystery of the Trinity, which you can find on my blog. I just I don't want to have to go through it again now. Are you familiar with that, Mantis King? I'll find it on the blog for you. I mean, you're dealing with somebody who has solved the mystery of the Trinity, which, Christians always say, oh, it's one of the mysteries of God and all that. It's like, no. It's obvious what it was all about and how they came to that ridiculous idea. If you think like a theologian, which I do. What was I going to look up? I was going to look up... I've forgotten. Oh yes, the Trinity. So basically the Trinity is the doctrine of... well, you basically have to believe that Jesus is co-equal, co-eternal and co-substantial with the Father and Holy Spirit, right? That's what the Trinity is about.
Yeah, I know, but we were talking about we were talking about that, and if quantum physics, something can be one and many at the same time, then the whole thing about the Trinity being illogical kind of really falls to the wayside, because if we can see it in nature, that means it exists everywhere. So there's a problem.
Wait, how do we see the Trinity in nature? Are they going to talk about the
Because on the
three-leaf clover or something?
no, because in the quantum level, something could be one and many.
No. I mean, okay. It's logical to think that a trinity is a unit of three, right? That's what the word means. A unit of three. A pair is a unit of two, right? An octet is a unit of eight, and so on and so forth.
No, but I think it can be one and three at the same time. Like somehow it's the way it was explained to me, though. I don't. The way it was explained to me is that it's like a pile of Play-Doh that you can separate into three, but then you can put it back into one.
Yes, or you can say it is a blend, all right? Because if you look at the Athanasian Creed, um, or any other explanations of the Trinity, it's like they're all together. So Jesus and the Father and the Holy Spirit are one and indivisible. So you can't divide them and say this bit is God and that bit is the Spirit and that bit is the Father. It's like they're all blended. That is the whole idea of it. They have to blend it. Otherwise, because okay, the Arian view of Jesus is that what did you say? God created Jesus, and he was an angel, and so they're already separate, right? They're already separate, and the Trinity is the opposite, is saying they're all the same, co-eternal, co-substantial, co-equal. And why did they have this weird theory that drives people crazy? And I'm telling you that the reason must be because the Christian theologians got tired of losing the argument to Jews, because the Jews will say, well, our God of Israel didn't have to be crucified, and we believe in him, and he's still alive.
Mm-hmm.
And he didn't have to be sacrificed for humanity to save himself from humanity. And you have this sort of crazy story, and you can't make sense of it, and our God is more powerful than your God, because your Aryan God, this divine man, it's like he's obviously lower in status to the God of Israel. And so the only way the Christian theologians could counter that was to say that, but actually he's the same substance, and he's co-equal and co-eternal. And they don't have to explain why. They can just say that's it. That's how he is. And if you question it, we're going to torture you.
Mm-hmm.
And that was
Yeah,
how
I
it
mean,
worked. That was the only way they could win the argument, right?
yeah.
And so this is the mystery of the Trinity solved. I mean, once you work it out, it's as simple as that. And okay, if you want a religion that people believe in, and you want them to believe in it because you want them to obey the laws, because if they don't really believe in it, then they'll break the laws when they don't think people are looking, right? I mean, that's how people are. Like, if nobody sees me murdering, stealing, committing sexual offences, then I get away with it. And therefore it is necessary to believe in the afterlife, because we also know that the Sadducees, who were the priesthood in ancient Israel before they were kicked out, didn't believe in the afterlife. But I don't know if you're aware of that, Vincent. Are you aware of it?
No, I was not aware. Can I look that up?
Yeah, please.
That you. Oh God, I hate this. When I gotta change my browser to Google.
Yes, Mantis King. They borrowed, well, the story of God impregnating Mary is a very old story, you know.
Okay, they didn't believe in resurrection.
Yeah,
Okay, wait.
yeah. So were
Okay.
the Greeks, pagans, Mantis King, and basically the Romans lifted the Greek pantheon and just gave them Roman names. So like Zeus would become Jupiter, um, Aphrodite would become um, Venus, and so on. But the point was that the Romans didn't really believe that there was Zeus and his wife and his daughters and all the rest of it, um, and and because people didn't really believe that they would just break all the laws, and there's no point having good laws if people break them all the time. And the people, it's like the situation in America, isn't it? In theory, Americans would be the best protected people in the whole wide world, because they have all these rights that no other country has. But if they don't enforce it, if they don't defend it, well, they could be just like any tin pot dictatorship if they don't defend it and they don't enforce these laws. So the only way to make people really believe in it is to say, well, you have to believe. You have to believe in the afterlife, and or you have to pretend to believe. And well, at least if you pretend to believe, you know what it is you're really supposed to believe and do. And you may even tell lies, but sometimes, you'd have to reluctantly do the thing that you hoped you didn't have to do. So it's like you're a liar, but you say you tell the truth, and then you think, well, if I'd actually have to tell the truth for people to believe me, so I have to tell the truth, or you know.
Hello?
Yes. Have you looked up the? Yes, you have looked up the Sadducees um,
Yes.
and you agree that the Sadducees didn't believe in the resurrection, which means they didn't believe in the afterlife, which means
Yeah.
that they were fundamentally corrupt, in that you think, well, if I do this thing that I'm not supposed to, and the law is on my side, and nobody notices that I've killed and committed sexual offences and stolen, then it's all right. And if my mates, my associates control the judiciary, then I'll be all right because they'll always fight in my favour. But if too much of this happens, then the people below you will think, well, we might as well overthrow them because they're just going to cheat and lie and steal elections or whatever it is that they do, and then overthrow the system, and that is why it collapses. And so people talk about having a high trust society as if it were a luxury, but I'm saying it's a necessity, because if you don't believe that the people in charge are the best people to be in charge, you're just going to want to overthrow them, or at the very least not believe what they say, and not do what they tell you to do. And there's always been the problem of government.
Hmm. Yeah. Right. Yeah, no, I know. Well, I don't know if that's what I don't know if is there an afterlife in the Torah in the Pentateuch?
Yeah. Well, the Pentateuch is what, the five books, right? Which is
Yeah.
a Torah, yes, yes.
Is there afterlife in there?
I don't think it says that, which was presumably what, because I mean, people say that Judaism doesn't really, talk about the afterlife, and that's true, and I also happen to know that the ultra Orthodox Jews say, well, we believe in reincarnation because there's nothing telling us not to believe in reincarnation, and I suppose there's no harm in believing in reincarnation because. Um, because it is an expression of afterlife justice. So Buddhism is still a religion, even though technically it's atheist, because Buddhist belief in reincarnation means that, you know, eventually you will get your just desserts, in your next life. If you were, bad and hurt people, then you'll be, reincarnated into a life of suffering and whatever until you correct yourself. And some Jews believe in that because it's just easier to believe than going to heaven or hell, which is not at all mentioned or described in the Torah. But I think whichever way you slice it, for this life and the next, the Quran offers you a much nicer heaven and a scarier hell, and and also fewer capital punishments. So even for Jews, if they're being logical, if they really believe in God and everything, they would have to convert to Islam, and I think that's why a lot of these rabbis won't talk to me anymore.
I think that you really your problem is that you are so sure that just because the Torah is more strict, that people are going to prefer the Quran because it's less strict. Like, it's just like automatic. Like, okay, there's less capital offenses, and the afterlife is better, and this and that. That I think that you're underestimating the fact that there's a big difference between Torah Judaism and Quranic Islam, and just some people find the Torah to be a better guide for humanity, and they're different, and they preach different things, and they have different narratives. And I think that people would prefer strict Torah, over, especially in the West where they're Christians, they would prefer strict Torah over Islam any day, because just the Quran, they don't feel as inspired. They just, when they read it, they don't feel the same inspiration of God. And so they've chosen the Torah, and you're just acting like nobody's going to choose the Torah because it's more strict. And I don't think that's true.
Okay, we won't know because hardly anybody we know would even read, one, either the Torah, or the Quran, because, the and you don't like the Quran. I mean, I actually found it quite a good read, because, I mean, it is a work of literature, and yeah, I'm just saying, why would you even have a religion? I mean, you either have a religion because you like its laws and you want it enforced in this life, or you're using it to get to heaven because you're afraid to die. Okay, so they're just two reasons, right? Why you might be choose one or the other,
Wait,
and
what are the two reasons? What are the two reasons?
that you think if your government obeyed the laws in the Quran, for example, you would have lower taxes and lower crime and a better society. I mean that's one of the reasons why you might independent of whether you believe in God or not, want to follow want social conservatism.
Yeah, but you can get that from the Noahide laws.
Yes, you could, but anyway, since very few people have heard about the no hide laws,
Okay, give it some time, Claire. We're talking about like 50 to 100 years from now, Noahidism is the mainstream world religion. Let's not like it's just come out of the gate. So yes, Islam has been around for 1400 years, but they still haven't taken over the world. Noahidism has been around for, give me a second, has been around for 60 years, and they have 500,000 converts, and they have, there was probably less than 500,000 converts, Muslims, in 60 years. Who knows how many converts there were in 60 years? But, but it doesn't matter. That it's just, I'm predicting that it's going to be more appealing than Islam in the end.
okay, well, you can you can test this theory by becoming a secular Koranist and see how people react to you as a secular Koranist. You know, I mean, you can talk about these things with greater authority if you become a secular Koranist.
What do you mean
And
greater authority? I have greater authority by being a researcher in the Noahide laws for 10 years than I do just because I'm close to Claire Khaw in secular Koranism. Secular Koranism doesn't have a single follower per your own recognition.
well, I have a few, but I mean, okay, they're not prominent people. I mean, you would be the first prominent secular
Oh,
Koranist.
How's Carol doing?
I don't see. Well, she's living abroad, so I don't hear from her very much. But anyway, I mean, you would be the most prominent secular Koranist, and
Yeah,
there
but I
may be
don't.
benefits. You would get a lot of attention because, okay, I mean, you obviously don't mind negative attention, otherwise you wouldn't say or propose the things you do. So I think you can take it. And then you might even be protected by Muslims who will love you so much for being prepared to read the Quran properly or talk about it, you know, in these terms. So I think that, and the thing is, you will have the option of giving it up if you don't like it, and talking to more rabbis, and you know and seeing what how they react to you after you become a secular Koranist. Well, will they be friendlier or even more hostile? Will they flee from you? Will Adam Green have you on his show again? He won't have me on his show.
Does he know who you are? He knows who you are, right?
I'm sure he does. I mean, he knows Duvid, and he knows you. I know he used to hang around Church of Entropy. He would post in the chat.
Oh, really?
So he must know me. I mean, he just doesn't want to talk to me. I mean, a lot of them don't because it's clear that I don't agree with their. Okay, the thing is, I can say things that would upset Jews, but these anti-Semites, they want it. They want their narrative, and I've noticed that with them, because I do associate in the with these people, that they sometimes fight each other because they have their own competing narratives of anti-Semitism, and so they compete with each other, and that's why they fight. It's so kind of like, yeah, I hate Jews, but and I know you hate Jews, but you don't hate them for the right reasons. I do, and whatever. But
They're
that's
very divided and they can't work together, and you
yeah,
know they're
yeah.
very critical of each other, hypercritical, and they're very extremely cynical. You know what I mean? They're extremely cynical people, and so it's hard for them to organize. But as we've said, I do see them forming alliances with Islam, and I see them being influenced by Islam, and I kind of see this scary alliance coming forward. But my only hope is to get these people into Noahidism.
No, no,
And
no. Jump before you're pushed, because secular Quranism will protect you. Because okay. So what you might object to about secular Quranism is that it might, it would lower you in status because I would have to cancel your gay marriage, but provide alternative arrangements. But the thing is, if you are too high status, people will just say, "Oh, you're to blame. You're the gay mafia." Blah blah blah. In the same way that they look at Jews, because all these Gentiles who hate them can't get out of their heads that they are God's chosen people, and for this reason they think Jews are above them, and that's why they hate them and envy them, and they say, "Oh, but these Jews, they behave just like us, and we don't want to listen to them because they're just like us, really, and they're stupid." And they lie and blah blah, just like us, and that's why they can't, accept it.
That woman just said that a lot of these misogynistic young white men are being attracted to Islam because of Andrew Tate. true. And I think that I don't know. I don't know. I don't want them uniting with Islam. I want them
No,
uniting with
no. Okay,
Noahidism.
okay. This is how I put. Okay, I don't think Noahidism stands a chance at all. But what will happen is when enough people think, oh, it's got to be Islam then, right? And then everybody goes for Islam. And I'm saying, what the only thing to stop them from going over the top with their desire to throw gays off rooftops and stuff is to have a sensible interpretation that is acceptable to most people, and it is the interpretation that matters. And I'm one of the first people, well, I am the first person to say, don't interpret it in their way. Have a Western version of it. Have a look at mine. It will accommodate, within reason, people who are prepared to be reasonable, even if they are gay, even if they're unmarried parents, even if they're divorced, even if they're non-parents. Because it's just fair enough that you should privilege married parents, because if you don't privilege them, they won't marry, right? They won't marry, or if they marry you, they won't stay together. And their children will be mentally ill and learning disabled and evil, degenerates, and then your civilization will fall. So I think that's a sensible reasoning, and yeah, we don't want horrible interpretations of the Quran. We want a Western um, version of it, and I'm not saying I'm just going to interpret away the verses I don't like. I will have impose a literal interpretation, which means I will be adopting all the commands, and I'm not going to just not I'm not going to ignore the verses I don't like. But I will be interpreting in a way that Muslims will say, "Ooh, that isn't what our hadith say." So, but I mean, I think it's necessary for these Muslims to hate it. So it becomes a Western school of Sharia, and you can help. You can help me.
Well, I kind of tried helping you by going through that packet and teasing out everything from the Quran, but that it was hard. I don't know. We can keep going with that, and
Mm-hmm.
we can keep going with that. But that's where. Okay, wait, hold on. Hey Siri, turn on the shelf. Okay.
Okay.
So let me find where it was talking about land ownership. Hold on. Where is it? Hold on. Okay, protection of property. I think chapter 8. Let's see. Oh wait, okay, protection of property. Let's see if we can find it. Where is that? Where's the part about land? Looking for the part about land. Protection of property. Where is that? Shit, I can't find it. Basic human rights. Pertaining to economy. Let's just say, is it an economy? Where the fuck is it? I knew it was in here. Okay, here it is. I found it.
Mm-hmm.
Earth, land is the basic source of production because an Islamic state has the momentous responsibility of provisions of zakat to fulfill. Therefore, this basic source of production, the land cannot remain in the ownership of individuals. Land remains under the state, charge of the state, so that the needs of the individual may get equally fulfilled. In Surah Ha-Mim Sajdad, first chapter of the Quran, it is said, 41:10, he sets on the earth mouths standing firm, standing high above its surface, which serves as means of water supply, and gave it to the capability to produce different items, and with the charge of 4 seasons standardized, its produce correctly for feeding its inhabitants, and 56, 73 to 74. Okay, it doesn't say what that is. Note, it has been clarified at several places in the Quran that the earth has been created to fulfill the requirements of humanity. As an all-encompassing explanation of this topic, it is not intended in this book, therefore, it is not considered quoting all the relevant references. However, see 55:10 and 56:63 to 73. Okay. Actually, let me send this. Oh no, I'm not gonna do it now. But
Oh,
so that's
were you
what
going to send it to me?
it's a Parwaz document. You know the
Okay.
It's in that what's his name?
Yes, G.A. Powers.
Parwez.
Yeah, I'm going to. I posted a reading of a short book by somebody called Mazaruddin Siddiqui called Marxism or Islam, and it's quite a good book explaining how Islam gives social justice as well as moral satisfaction or something, and I did read a few chapters from it, and well, some of you might find it useful. Anyway, I've just posted the link in the chat, and I'll post it to you on Facebook. And you might find it a quick way of just absorbing the information if you want to, because I do read a few chapters. They're not very long.
And he's saying, is it going to be Islam or Marxism?
Yeah. And it compares the Marxist approach with the Islamic approach. But anyway, I mean, I just find it quite satisfying. I mean, just sort of morally satisfying that it seems to make sense. At least it's proposing what I think would work if it were implemented, and rather than sort of crazy stupid ideas that you keep hearing the government proposing that contradict what they said the last time, and it just sort of drives me crazy. I'm sure it drives other people crazy too.
Hold on 1 second. But Marxism and Islam are
Polar opposites, you're going to say?
uniting. Well, less now though. Look, all these younger Muslim men, a lot of them are very leftist, and that they're Muslim. You've been noticing these Muslims that support gays and women and stuff, right?
Yeah, because they have to join the Democrats, because the Democrats were the only people who were being nice to these Muslims, right? So I mean, of course, that would be the narrative, and then the Republicans cottoned on and said, no, 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 Muslims, you don't just join the Democrats, come and join us, we'll be nice to you too, and this basically happened to the Hispanics, right? You know, but this is always the case. There'll be this party. Oh, you poor huddle masses. We're going to be nice to you, and you're going to be voting for us for the rest of your life. And then the Republicans or the Conservatives, no, hey, join us, and we'll be nice to you too.
Well, I know, but there's this reaction in Islam where these young, homophobic, misogynistic Muslim men would rather be working with white nationalists than the left.
Yes, yes, but what we want is everybody uniting to overthrow this crazy system of. Are you happy with your government, Vince? I mean, are
No,
you?
I'm not happy. I'm not happy with the wars that they're doing, and I'm not happy that they are antagonizing Muslims and then letting them in at the same
Yeah,
time.
that's crazy.
And I think that they're a really big problem. But my problem with them is not gay marriage and stuff like that. That's not my problem with them.
Yeah, yeah, but basically, you have to prioritize because it's like, yeah, you get this party and it supports this cause you like, but then it's sort of the wrong way when about another thing that you care about too, but maybe not as much, and or you can't work out, um, and I think ultimately we would just be happier not having to worry about this and saying, well, our country is in good hands. So, we may not know every detail of what our government is doing, but on the whole, we trust them to do the job. I think that would be good enough. You know, it's only when we don't trust them that we demand to know all kinds of details and reports and whatever, and then they lie in their reports and you know and
Yeah,
answers
we
anyway. And we just, that's all we want. We just want the appearance of being well governed. And you would have thought that since they control the media or whatever, and if they don't control the media, they damn well ought to, to just give this impression to reassure us because we're just sick and tired of worrying if our government is mad and evil or stupid.
yeah, yeah. Well, I guess I'm glad to see Islam and the left disintegrating at one point, but I'm not glad to see the white nationalists and the Muslims coming together. That doesn't make me happy. And I really want to foil that.
You can foil that, Vincent, by becoming a secular Koranist because, okay, I think we may agree, we may already have just agreed that interpretation is key. You can have all kinds of laws, but you have to interpret them the right way, and whoever controls the interpretation gets his or her way, right? And we want the liberal interpretation, and and therefore, we have to put secular Koranism out there before they come up with their sort of horrible ISIS version of Islam, throwing gays off tall buildings and whatever it is that they want to do. So if you're there first and say, hey, this is the first one, this is the first Western school
No,
of
you don't
Sharia.
understand. I would prefer importing. Okay, I wish all the Muslims that were coming to the West were like fanatical radical jihadists because then it would just be so obvious everyone wouldn't tolerate it. You know what I mean? Well, my problem are the liberal Muslims that make it look tolerant and that it's good and all this stuff.
Okay, but I suppose you have to work out which strategy you um, you prefer. So, okay, my one is that eventually people in the West will realize that there is nothing that they can use to fight back against this intersectionality other than with religion, and there is only one religion, they could be using it because I dismiss Nohadism, and if it's that religion, they might be fighting over the interpretation. But if you're there first with your liberal one, at least you have a head start on them. But if you're the sort of Johnny come lately and they're already there about their stoning and their hadith and whatever, no music and no, you know, so if you're there first, at least you get to make a first impression. But if you come in the middle of the show, they're not going to you're not going to get that much attention or respect, and that's why you people like you are so important. So ideally, I would like, I kind of have a female American white secular Koranist, but she's not, you know, around. Um, but in theory, I also have a British secular Koranist, but I think you would be the most prominent because, you are a streamer. You've been doing your own thing for a while, so you kind of have a track record of, well, you have an identity. I may not agree with you of what you've been trying to promote, but you have an identity as a political activist. So people who know what the kind of things you say would be interested. It's like, hey, why is Vincent, taking up with this secular Koranism thing? And they will ask questions, and then you will be able to explain it to them, and then
No, I would have
the
to
debate
explain
will
to
grow.
them. I would have to explain to them that I believe in the laws of the Quran. And, I'm not so sure we should get rid of capitalism, number one. Um,
Yeah, and then don't people be saying, here's why you should get rid of capitalism, blah blah blah. In fact, I know this Turkish man who's got a YouTube channel. Maybe when we're both secular Quranists, we can, you know, invite him, to explain it to us, and that would be cool if
well, yeah, but I'm not, I mean, I would, yeah, usury and I would have to basically take on what the Quran tells me to do. And I don't think I'm necessarily ready, to do that.
You don't have to. You just have to consider it. You just have to consider it because at any time you can say no. I've just read the Quran. It's terrible. I don't want it. Blah blah. But it will make you read it. Okay. The fact that you become a secular Quran is because people will say, "Oh, Vincent, what do you think of this verse and that verse?" And then it'll annoy you that you don't know it, and then you will read it, and you will increase your knowledge, and then you can talk to more people about it, and maybe express your preference for a particular interpretation. I just and since you can work with rules, I think you would just enjoy doing it, just for the fun of it.
Well, but yes, but I mean, Noahidism is a lot more complex to interpret, and there's a
It's
lot
harder to
more.
interpret. Okay, this is something that you said. You say, oh, the no-hide laws, there's only 7 of them. It's so easy. But actually, I would disagree with you because sometimes when you're not given enough detail about something, it actually makes it harder. It's like, yeah, it's okay. I want to remember that there's 7 items, but if there are more items, if there's sort of important things left out, then it will be, you'll get into trouble because you don't have, rules to deal with particular situations. So, I'm sure you've heard Muslims say, oh, Islam is a holistic solution to everything and blah blah, and that might, be also helpful to see how comprehensive it is if you're interested in that sort of thing, because it's basically saying, it's not just saying God created, the world. I mean, it sort of says, Allah is the creator of the worlds, and it describes, the Big Bang, and what else does it say? Okay, it has something to say about warfare and foreign policy. I think that's important, isn't it? I mean, as regards world peace, because you know, um, if people agree that they're going to use a staying rule book, even if they have different interpretations and fight each other over it, it would be better than if they didn't even use the same rule book. Is what I'm trying to say.
I know, but okay, if there's the 7 laws, but if you need reference, you have the whole Torah.
Yeah, but but people can say, oh, but the Jews, they don't even follow it.
So what? If the Jews aren't following it, that's their loss. Like that doesn't mean the Gentiles are not going to see the worth of Torah.
Well, you see, if they don't follow it, you can easily say, well, why don't you follow it? Is it too hard for you now? And it's sort of, well, yes. It is too hard for them. They can't bring themselves to do it. I mean, that's why in Israel, the secular Israeli government is busily importing Gentiles. You know, it's these secular Jews saying, we don't want to live as Jews. We just don't see the point of it. We hate it. And we hate the religious Jews, and we want to destroy. They want to destroy their Jewish identity because it's too hard. They don't want to live like that. And I'm saying, well, okay, if you don't want to live like that, you can have the happy medium of secular Koranism, because if God exists, he'll be okay. That at least you're following, you know, the other book of his, you know, books of rules. But if you're not following it at all, and if God exists, then you'll be, you know, well, very cross with them. And we, you know, I think Jews already know that they're being punished by God, you know, for disobeying his laws. And the thing is, you know, if they were to adopt secular Koranism with Israeli characteristics, it would be, you know, they would actually be doing what they were made God's chosen people to do, which is to be light unto nations. And even if they feel they have to, you know, ask permission from America, even they're asking for permission to become a one-party theocracy is just going to, well, send a shockwave to the Americans. And, you know, I think, you know, all it takes is just a few, you know, focused messages to the right people from the right people too, and you know, minds could change, you know. Because I don't think the Israelis are happy. Did I send you this video with David Bar-Hayim complaining that only what less than 50% of Jews are of Israelis are even Jews? Because yeah, this is something Judah sent to me. I thought it was quite interesting. You know, saying that, you know, all these Russians are not even Jews. They just come here for the nice weather, and they hate our religion. You know, why are we letting all these Ukrainians in? They the Nazis, and they, you know, they were really horrible to Jews during Hitler. So they can't be happy, and the thing is, you know, it's not that liberalism is destroying Gentile Western identity, it's also destroying Jewish identity.
Yeah, it's destroying Jewish identity, but you know, I think that we're at a turning point in society, and you don't. I mean, I think that things are going to radically change as what's going on is becoming very radical, and it's only going to become more radical, and the two sides are eventually going to become polar opposites, and the polar opposite of liberalism is Noahidism, not Islam, not Christianity. But Noahidism is more opposite of liberalism than Islam.
Well, I'm saying that if you did become a secular Quranist, people will take an interest. They will invite you on their shows, unless they're making a point of not inviting you anywhere, whatever you say. But it's worth a try, and then you know, if it doesn't work, you know, you can always renounce it. But I think we could have fun, and I think, you know, for tactical reasons, it's important that, you know, a liberal interpretation be first promoted, and it would be great even if the Muslims say, oh no, you can't. How can you not stone adulterers and how throw gays off tall buildings? We hate you, and even that would be useful. Because it's like, well, you know, we don't want to stone adulterers, and we don't want to throw gays off tall buildings, and it doesn't say that in the Quran, so we don't have to do things the way you want to do, and it didn't really help you.
Good evening, welcome to another episode of the Ari Lewis Show here on Israel Sports News.
Because, you know, the fact that, you know, Muslims, you know, were too harsh in their interpretation, or made up stuff that probably caused their own punishment.
Well, I mean,
Go on. Go on,
You can
Vincent.
you can try, Claire. I mean, you can really try. You've been trying, but you haven't sold me. I mean, I have to look at all the laws a little bit more closely or all the recommendations, but a lot of it seems like, well, there's the marital stuff and the sexual relations that, I don't agree with. And let me just look at this thing. A lot of it is, I think, let me look at it. From looking at it, I remember a lot of it just being maybe good advice. Like,
Sensible,
yes, so
practical advice.
moderation in expense, uh, absurd and immodest talk, not walking like piously and proudly. Um, they give you lots of like little hints about how to live your life, etiquette of assembly, jealousy, backbiting, nicknaming others, envy, jesting, public exposure of others, mistrust, ridiculing of divine system. Well, I don't care about that. Crooked reasoning, anger, rage, forgiveness, self-correction, do not bully people with your virtues. Okay, like these just seem like under um recommendations for living, but this isn't anything you can't find in the Torah.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose it's all about making sure that the adherents of your religion are okay. I mean, maybe the dietary restrictions is sort of like, well, at least you can see that Jews and Muslims don't die of pork poisoning, or whatever people used to die of when they had pork that wasn't cooked properly. Um, so, uh, so obviously they would care about their people and give sensible advice, which maybe Christians don't, maybe Hindus don't, or Buddhists don't.
No, Hinduism, all religions give sensible advice. Give me 1 second. All religions give sensible advice. I'll be right back.
Okay. But yeah, wouldn't it be nice if Vincent became a secular Koranist people? I mean, wouldn't it be so nice, and it'd be would have more interesting streams. But I guess I'll save my spiel for him when he comes back. Yes, Tinkle Tinkle, the Quran is a good read. I particularly recommend the Penguin translation by N.J. Darwood, who was an Iraqi Jew. I mustn't forget what I'm going to say to Vincent when he returns, but I already have. I've already forgotten what I was going to say to Vincent. Oh, yes. I was going to say that Vincent has he has access to Muslims who know their stuff through me. Well, maybe not so much access to rabbis and Jews who know their stuff when when he's promoting Noahidism. So if you people can just encourage him to become a secular Quranist, he might just do it. So I'd be grateful for your help, chat. Oh, I'm feeling a bit peckish now. Oh, what they showing? What's the football today? I used to watch all the matches. Such an anorak I was. And now I'm too busy saving Western civilization to take a proper interest in the World Cup. I miss the England and Ecuador. Was it Ecuador? World Cup football fixtures.
Hello?
Yes.
Have you been talking?
I thought I'd save it for you till you came back. I wanted to say to you, Vincent, that you will, through me, have more access to Muslim scholars, Islamic scholars who know their stuff. You know, if you do secular, if you adopt a secular Koranism, I haven't noticed that you have, access to particularly bright no-hides or rabbis even. I mean, I know about your encounter with Michael Brown, but he didn't impress you, did he? I forget what you were arguing about now.
He didn't know that it's the Gentiles that implement the Noahide laws, not the Jews.
Mm-hmm.
And we got into an argument over that.
Well, I suppose nobody really knows. Nobody really knows. Because the Noahide laws, when they were imposed by the ancient Israeli government on, Noahide residents.
On Canaanites, yeah.
Yeah. So and obviously they exterminated them, right?
Yeah.
So it's bound to cause confusion and consternation, but the Quran is quite clear. It's like, yeah, we do it ourselves. We don't need rabbis, and actually Jews should become Muslims if they know what's good for their afterlife, and that kind of makes it easier. Did do you know my answer to the JQ?
What?
So basically, I say that Jews have to be registered, right? You know my little thing about a register of Jews with registrar rabbis. Have I talked about that to you?
Register the Jews that are actually Jews, right? That's your
Yeah.
plan.
So basically, that was my idea, and I know David would hate it. All the Jews would hate it because the registrar would be a rabbi, and the rabbi would basically say, yeah, he's one of my congregation. So if you're not an observant Jew, you don't get registered, and you're not Jewish. Nice and easy, isn't it? And obviously, I put it to Duvid, and he clearly didn't like it because he's
Well,
not on good terms with his rabbis. In fact, he's just what it. Well, I mean, he's a Hindu, for God's sakes.
yeah.
So, I mean, he's just being unorthodox and probably spending, I mean, I'm just posturing as, look how far I can stretch the definition of being Jewish,
Mhm.
while still being considered Jewish. And maybe it's like, those, those dumb goyim, they'll still accept me as Jewish even though I'm Hindu. And it's
Yeah.
probably, his fellow Jews who are tearing their hair out saying, no, you can't be Hindu and call yourself Jewish, or, you should shut up about it if you are. But clearly he won't. And one of the things that I hear being said about him is that what Conops was saying that with Jews like David who need Jews don't need enemies because Duva's position is to really confirm all the suspicions that anti-Semites have, like, oh yes, they do control, the elite, they are part of the elite, they are the managerial class, blah, blah, blah. And this will antagonize them even more. While Jews are saying, oh, no, we're just like you, we're just being oppressed by the same horrible government, aren't we, blah, blah. But Duvit wants us to sort of, make it, make it obvious that Jews do manage Gentiles and provoke them even more. But and the thing Gentiles do about Jews is that because they're relatively rare. It's like, oh, I've just found my Jew, and therefore everything he says about Judaism, everything is representative of Jewry, and without realizing that a lot of Jews are kind of crazy too, and and are not rabbis, and wouldn't be agreed with by their fellow Jews, or whatever they said. We already know that rabbis don't agree with other rabbis, so okay. I'm basically saying that Jewish identity needs to be sorted out, in the same way that masculine and feminine identity need to be sorted, because I think it is relatively easy to do. If just one sex, in the case of gender relations, decide to behave, if men decided to be men, then the women will behave like women. If the women behave like women, the men will become men. So it's not that hard. But obviously it's hard, trying to get get even just one group to accept it. And it's the same for Jews and Gentiles. It's like, Jews, they think they can do anything. They think they can party with peasants and be treated like, the aristocracy. Well, it doesn't work like that. But anyway, they're confused because nobody tells them what to do anyway. And even if they did, they wouldn't listen, because nobody listens to anybody in a society supposedly run on egalitarianism, which is kind of one of the core ideas of the French Revolution. Liberty, equality, fraternity. And I think, we are the children of the French Revolution, and its effects are just coming to an end. I think we will at some stage say we don't want all this liberty, equality, fraternity, because it's impossible to be friendly with your elder brother or your younger brother if they're not observing the proprieties. Or if you're young, if your older brother is thinks he's your older sister, and if your younger brother is behaving like your older brother, I don't know. It's just all this idea of identities is because people are not, people don't do people don't know who they are, and that's why they don't do what they're supposed to do. But you could help. You could help by talking.
I don't want a world like that. I want a world where, people are kind of free from being pigeonholed into who they are and having to play a role just because they're born a boy, or because they're born the youngest, or, because they're born a woman. Like, I don't want people to feel like they have to fit into a mold of society, and that if a woman feels like being like a man and that's her nature, then let her, be like that. And if a man is more like a woman and that's his nature, then let him be like that.
Yeah, and take the consequences. That there's always a price for doing what we want to do and going against the rules. But the point is that these rules are there for a reason, because if you want your race to continue, then obviously you want them to, marry and have children and stay together for the sake of the children, even though they're bored and irritated with each other, which is easy to do in a long marriage. But anyway, I mean, you have to privilege married parents in order to encourage people to do all the, and even this, all the fairy tale stories about once upon a time and lived happily ever after, was to encourage marriage, because otherwise they wouldn't. I mean, otherwise men would just prefer to be gay or pump and dump women. And that would be a terrible thing for women, and a terrible thing for society, because the crime rate would go up, and you know, and then you just
Well,
wouldn't be able to.
my suggestion is that men just pay into a system where women are taken care of collectively, and are allowed to raise the children, and then the father kind of interacts with the children. But that's how I think it should be. I think that
I know
men
you
should.
do. But here is why it wouldn't work. You wouldn't have control over them. They would think of you as, the other lot, and wouldn't support you. I mean,
They're being supported. They're being supported to have the kids. I mean, we don't need control over them. First of all, they would be able to do whatever they want as long as they were, taking care of the child. And that the men would help with the child care because they want to be part of the child's life, and that it was just kind of done on this contract rather than love and or arranged marriage where you don't even like each other from the very start, then just do it as collective child rearing. And yeah, I think gay men should do that. I think gay men should pay into a system where women, like I said, are like housed in like some kind of communal apartment building, and they each get their own apartment, and they just have the child there, and they take care of the child, and then the father visits, or whatever, they go to the father's house, or the father spends nights over there, or however they arrange to have the father in the
yeah, but,
life.
but, but don't you see that would be, the equivalent of a fatherless home? The father wouldn't, if he doesn't live there, he won't have the authority over them, and that is really the problem. The mother just letting their kids take drugs and go to parties and
They
whatever.
have two parents, and also it's communal, so there's other men and other
Yeah,
women there.
they'll probably abuse the children who are
No,
not their
so
own.
no. That this happens in religious communities where they abuse each other. I'm talking about secular liberal people who don't abuse children.
Oh,
You
I'm
are much
sure they do.
safer.
Okay, or
You are
or
much
neglect
safer.
them. Maybe
You are
they.
much. You are much safer in a community of secular liberals from your child being raped than you are in a Muslim or a Christian or a Jewish religious community. You are the people who abuse children rampantly.
Well, I wouldn't know about that. But
Oh,
I'm saying,
please.
if both the parents were living together and the children lived with both their parents, they would be better protected than if only one parent was there, and
With
the
a
only the
community.
other one occasionally visited, and the visiting one is the father, because then the father wouldn't have any authority, and the mother would assert sufficient authority over her children, especially her sons, who would start disobeying her the moment they were taller than her. This is what the problem is now. Lack of parental discipline leading to rising crime and violence in the streets. And
I think a community could neutralize that. I think that if it's a community, then it could be neutralized.
okay, I don't.
I mean, the community, the children in the community would be run like a school almost, where you keep them in the same age range, and I guess you would have people working together. Hold on one second. Somebody rang the doorbell. Jamo? I hope it's food. Um, um, what were we talking about? That, just kind
Parenting.
of like in a school, those people aren't your parents, but they have authority over you. You know what I mean? I mean, you would be working together collectively to make sure that I'm talking about collective child rearing, and there's a lot that goes into that. Um, you know, there's a lot that
Yes,
goes
yes,
into that.
but
There's a lot of
don't.
organization that goes into that, and you have lots of help in raising your child. You know what I mean? You're not going to be so burdened, and children won't be such a burden because you'll have lots of help to raise them.
Well, yes, in theory you have all this help, but how caring is this help? Is really the
Rut the
question.
right people and rut the right people and look, you can let the wrong husband or wife into a family and she won't care for the children.
Yeah,
You
and
know,
so the whole idea of stopping sex before marriage is to say, well, you better choose quickly because you can only choose. You better choose well because you can only choose once, and once you choose, you're stuck with your choice. You've made your
yeah, but
bed.
you're young, you don't have a lot of time, you want to satiate your sex drive. Everyone wants you to um get married, and you're kind of rushed into it. So, and you're young and you don't know who you are, and you don't know.
Yeah, yeah, well, I mean, who you are. It's like, well, if you're a parent, then you're a parent and you better accept your parental responsibilities. But
I know, but you shouldn't be, become a parent, you know, too early. And especially, if it's a society without any kind of birth control, or we're in a society that you said you don't get birth control until you fulfill your family. And so people, young people want to have sex. And so and they're full of hormones and they don't know who they are and they don't know who the other person is, that well. And so, or they fall in love quickly, and it's masking a lot of differences between them that are going to be hard to bridge later on. And it's easy to make a mistake and then people become miserable. And I told you the problem with your system, it's just full of revolutions all the time. People just rebel against it because they don't want to live like that. People, like, once they get the chance not to live like that, they don't live like that anymore.
I know, until their society collapses, and then somebody else with a better culture comes in and cleans up. But you were talking earlier about that this idea of a child is raised by a whole village, nonsense, and I mean it made me think of the Neanderthals. You know they were nomadic, right? The Neanderthals were they were nomadic, weren't they?
I don't know.
Okay. And maybe we could do a bit of research on that and talk about that later. But basically, my understanding of the Neanderthals were that they were nomadic, and therefore, as a group, they would travel together and settle around, eat and just use up the resources of a particular place and then move on to the next one, and therefore they lived an unsettled lifestyle, and they probably had sex with each other, and they well, it's not a very settled lifestyle, obviously. So you can't build up great civilizations. It's only when you settle down and you think, oh, how can I make my village better, and buildings and schools and whatever. But anyway, once they settle down, they would have to do stuff like farming, and because they farmed, they needed, well, to produce offspring who would do what they were supposed to do. And if you are I guess a farmer with land, then you'd want a wife with lots of children to help you with the farm and all that, and that was kind of the agricultural revolution, that and that was why it was sort of necessary to order society in a different way. But if you're all sort of moving around together, as nomads, then I guess that there's no need for the father to take that much of an interest, because he's not even sure if the kid is his. But once he knows the kid is his, then he would want to protect his biological um, investment. You see, so people will think in a different way if they are focused on a particular spouse, and they are
Well,
children of
this
a
is sorry.
marriage. And
You're,
you will just have better children if you bring them up that way, rather than, oh, that kid could be mine, it couldn't be, oh, I'll
no,
just throw
everyone would
it a
know
little
whose child.
bone or something.
Everyone would know whose child is whose child. And Claire, some people kind of come above the jungle and they stop like working on these impulses that, well, the child's not mine, so then therefore I don't care about it. And
Oh,
you
they'll
know,
make a token effort. They'll throw in,
yeah,
you
no,
know, a
these are people,
chicken
you
wing
wouldn't
or
allow that
something.
type of person into your marriage if you're the right kind of family. You would look for people who have a higher purpose in taking care of children and making a collective family work. I mean, you're not just letting in trash. I mean, you always assume that we're going to let in these horrible people that like don't care about other people's children. We just wouldn't let that in.
Well, we do, you know, look at you now. I mean, I don't know what's happened to you a lot. I mean, nobody seems to be knowing what they're supposed to do. But I'm saying your perspective changes when, you know, because of lifestyle reasons. And you know, maybe there is no escape from this sort of horror of, you know, being a parent. And it's like, okay, you don't want to be a parent, fine, but at least, you know, there are other people around to make up for your shortfall. But and in a, you know, in the current situation, a lot of people have just given up. It's like, oh, we'll just be poor. Any, you know, money we have left over from our salary, we're just going to spend it on holidays and drugs and stupid stuff. And you know, it will have knock-on effects on the future of your country. That's all I'm saying. And I'm just inviting people to consider that, you know, whether they be black or white or you know, indigenous or just fresh off the boat. I mean, you know, a lot of people seem to need to be reminded of what it takes to keep a civilization going. And I think if
Yeah,
most
but what
parents had children, you can be free to lead your gay lifestyle. But if you live in a society of a shrinking birth rate, people will be saying, "Oh, you're a bachelor. You don't have babies. Maybe you should have babies. Why you know, shirking your responsibilities? And oh, you're gay. That's even worse," kind of thing. But you know, if everybody sort of, you know, most people are parents, and then at least you can sort of go about and nobody thinks, you know, of grabbing you and forcing you into marriage and, you know, paying for the kid and the woman. Um, but now I think there is a situation, you know, because okay, the Romans, when they were getting decadent, thought of imposing a bachelor tax because, you know, I guess, you know, their morals are probably as free and easy as ours is now, and a lot of men just didn't see the point of getting married and paying for the
Well,
kid
that's
and
why I'm
putting up
saying
with one
it's
woman.
time, you know, it's time for collective child rearing. It's time for, I wish the government would be into it, but they're not. I've told you my solution is to gather those people together who are cult-like minded when it comes to producing a eugenic race. They're not doing this because, you know, they're doing it for a purpose because they're religious people or because they're people with a vision, and relying upon that. And you know, the world does need to be depopulated to a certain degree. There are too many people, and you know, there's too many people that live in poverty and don't have jobs and all this other kind of stuff. So decrease their numbers and replace it with a system that is made to purposely be eugenic and purposely made to be less stressful on the parents so that you can be a parent but also have a life, and so that nobody is like bucking the system, nobody wants it to change, nobody's miserable, and you don't need to force this on people, and to kind of restart the world with this system that I'm thinking about, you know, rather than just imposing, you know, harsh, you know, marriage on people that they don't even want.
Hmm. Well, I guess you would have a different perspective because you haven't got children, and you know, you have, you know, this idea that you can just.
No, there's plenty of people with children who regret it. I mean, just because, you know, just because you have children doesn't mean that you think yourself that it's the greatest thing you ever did. You know what I mean? There's lots of people who regret having kids. And I'm saying that maybe we could get rid of that if they weren't so stressed out from having to raise them by themselves, and that if they had a community where they could raise them better. And you know, there there are other societies that are a little bit more communal in how they raise their children, and I don't
Well,
think
what
it's necessary.
societies are they?
Well, I think don't Islamic societies, don't they help each other out a lot more, than necessarily in the West? Well, I don't know. Maybe I don't know what I'm talking about, but I just think that doing it for doing its sake is, the future. I think that we need to stop just, well, you have to get married because you have to get married, and that's it. And we're going to either choose the spouse for you, or it's going to be someone that you randomly fall in love with, and it's not going to really be directed or thoughtfully directed in any kind of eugenic program. It's just willy-nilly, free for all. And I think that's a bad way to breed the human race.
But your way is experimental, isn't it?
So what?
Nobody's
It's
tried it
not
your
going to take
way,
over.
and they're
Look,
gonna they just want.
it's not going to take over everything at first. So if it doesn't work, it doesn't work, and then nobody got hurt. It's just the social experiment failed, and that's it.
Well, then a lot of people's lives would still be ruined.
Well, just because something hasn't been tried doesn't necessarily mean it's going to end in disaster.
Okay, Vincent. I should invite you to say. Do you have anything to say about how your year has been, and because it's kind of meant. This is kind of meant to be a review of your year, kind of thing.
Oh, well, yeah, I mean, as you know, I left Hinduism because basically, for the most part, I realized that it really doesn't describe my beliefs, and there's lots of things in there that I just don't agree with. And I can no longer keep my beliefs if they are evolving now and really call myself a Hindu. I mean, Hinduism, as you don't think it gives advice, but it does, and it's a very kind of natural ethic, and a lot of it is very traditional family, and all this other kind of stuff. And I've just been noticing there's a lot of Hindus that are involved in Hindu nationalism, and they're very homophobic and misogynistic, and not everything in their scriptures is the best. So, I left, and for being one for 10 years, and that was a little bit hard on me, but I did it. And then, I switched to Noahidism. Not that I'm becoming a Noahide, but I'm an accelerationist, in that, I want to speed it up so that the water boils faster, so that the frog feels it and hops out, rather than waiting until it's like too late and then he's paralyzed and he can't get out, and I think that that's what I'm trying to do. And I have a lot more faith in this than I have in secular Koranism. I'm scared of Islam. I'm scared of Islam. I'm scared of the white right wing and Islam connection. I do not like that. I think it's really bad, and I just want to confuse it. I'm trying to just really confuse everyone. I mean, or ruin everyone's prophecies and ruin everyone's desired outcome. I'm really excited to kind of give it to Christianity, because they're waiting for Jesus to come, and that's not what's going to happen. They're just going to see Noahidism spreading, and they weren't expecting anything like that. And they're not going to be expecting the kind of peace that Noahidism is going to bring to everyone. And it's really going to fly in the face of what they're waiting for, and the Muslims. I want them to see the power of this, and I want them, once it starts spreading really far and wide, and it gets a lot of acceptance, and we get closer and closer to actually having Noahide governments, the more Christians and Muslims are going to realize that they're wrong, and this is actually really the way to go. And so they'll start coming over more and more and more. At least that's my hope. That's the way I see it, because even though I don't know if I have always had magical thinking, and about gods and everything my whole life, but now I just don't even know if I even believe in that. I'm on the verge of being an atheist. But I do believe I do believe that there is something in the power of prophecy, even if it's not superstitious. It's something we don't understand. Maybe if just a group of people are waiting for something and thinking something will happen, it can actually make it happen, or something on a level we don't understand. Then I would believe that if anyone's prophecies are going to come true, it's Jewish prophecy. And also, I think that it's obviously taking place now because they're expecting Noahidism to come in around the time before the Messiah, and now something's going on. It seems like everyone feels like their Messiah is coming, and Noahidism is spreading. And so I think that their prophecy is coming true. And I think that this new idea is going to be a lot more appealing than old ideas that have been tried and nobody wants anymore, or are just not working. And I think, as far as it goes for the West, they would rather take Torah than Quran, and that's what I'm hoping for, and that's what I'm trying to push. And so I started. It only has one article on it, but I started a group called Noahide Rebel. The tagline is Noahide Rebel, no rabbis and no limits.
Mm-hmm.
It's noahiderebel.com.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no limits. Um, to kind of like push this along, and that's what I'm up to this year.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think secular Koranism would serve your purposes better if you want to, come to an accommodation and control the interpretation and, give people hope, that is not too scary. But, it's obviously up to you. And anyway, I find our conversations very helpful. Thank you for um, continuing to help me develop my ideas.
Yeah, sure, you're welcome. And I am interested in sharpening my arguments against Islam, because all of a sudden I've seen that it really is a big problem. Well, I always thought Islam was a problem, but I can now see that it's an even bigger problem, in that look, part of Islam, I think the leadership of Islam is going Noahide, but the rank and file, seem to be a little bit leery of it, and reactionary against it. Just like, that Muslim reactionary, his name is Reactionary. That's his screen name.
Mm-hmm.
When he came on, he's like, well, if you choose Noahide over Islam, you're Islamophobic. So this kind of argument is being spread, and they seem to be interested in making sure that Noahidism doesn't go anywhere. And I don't want Muslims in control. I would
You
much
prefer
rather,
Jews to be in control.
yeah, because I would prefer them to be my enemy. Because Islam, there's so many of them. There's more than 1 billion Muslims, and if they, I think that building up Noahidism gives the resistance more time and more initiative to start creating the resistance and getting ready to fight. Whereas I think Islam might spread a little bit more quickly, and it's already armed, and it could cause a problem a lot faster. And maybe people can't adapt fast enough. We're talking about people adapting fast enough, and so I'm hoping Noahidism kind of starts to destabilize Islam. I want to destabilize everyone. I want to destabilize the Christians. I want to destabilize the Muslims. I want to destabilize the Hindus, and I want to destabilize everyone. And this is a great destabilizing agent. And yeah, people will. It'll cause a lot of difference in the world. A lot of things will begin to change, and but I think it's a better path for my desire to create the opposite of the Noahide laws on Earth. Obviously, I mean, I'm
Well, it's
talking about
satanic.
what?
It's satanic, isn't it? Deliberately going against the no-hide laws.
No, I don't believe in Satan, and no, I don't believe going against the Noahide laws is bad. But the vision I have for the world is the very opposite. You know what I mean? So, idolatry, blasphemy, homosexuality, and not murder
But
and
if
theft.
everybody were like you would never have been born.
Well, I'm telling you, I'm saying create this alternative breeding system where, a lot of intellectual, intelligent, and high quality human beings don't want to have children because it really drains your life and they won't be able to reach their full potential. So I'm saying if you make it a lot easier and you turn this into like collective where, you don't, it's not so time and work intensive to raise a child, maybe more people of the certain type that I'd like would be having more children.
What sort of people do you like? Would they be good parents? I tend to
I don't think so.
suspect.
I'm talking about high quality people. I'm talking about a lot of people that oftentimes forego having children, like, people who run big businesses and who are athletes and who are doctors and lawyers and really professional people that, not just in the white collar, but the blue collar too, people who dedicate a lot of time to their jobs and have a lot of things to do with their life. And they're able to do this because they're very high quality. They have lots of energy. They're very intelligent. And I think these people tend to forego having children because it'll slow them down. And
They would be women, though, wouldn't they?
what?
They would be women rather than men.
Well, I mean, it slows everyone down. I mean, I don't think we should be having too many kids or anything, but I mean, my biggest thing now that I'm talking about is we need to create artificial womb technology. It is the most important thing. We need to liberate women from this. They need to be able to live their lives without having their bodies destroyed from pregnancies and having their careers destroyed because of pregnancies and all these different kinds of things. It is a biological, unfortunately, inconvenient thing that women have to carry children, and so it needs to be done through artificial wombs, and so we can actually, have large numbers of children coming out of these wombs rather than having women pregnant all the time and giving them lives they don't want and bodies they don't want. And that's a big thing that I'm into now is artificial womb technology. I really think that we need to take that, off the ground.
That would tend to make women redundant. But maybe that's the
Well, we
idea.
need we need
Maybe that is your evil plan.
no, we need eggs. You need women because you need eggs. We would need the eggs from the women in order to continue with the program. So women would not be redundant. I wait 1 second. I'll be right back. Hello.
Hello?
Yeah. No, my plan is not to make women redundant. You know what I mean? I think that's what these misogynists want. I think if they had their way, there would be no women. I mean, ew, Nick Fuentes was going on uh, about how the only way a man should be is an incel and having sex with women is gay, and like that just men should not be having sex with women at all. And just I mean, I think those people go in that direction. You know what I mean? They're so misogynistic. They no longer. I've said this. You eventually get to a point if you're so misogynistic, you almost become gay. I mean, a lot of deep, deep, deep misogynists are gay because it gets to the point that you are so into men so much and you hate women so much you can no longer sleep with women and you kind of fall in love with men. I mean, they're just the next greatest thing to, slice bread. So you kind of become attracted to them.
Needs must, I suppose.
What?
I mean, well, if you don't want to have sex with women, but you still want to have sex, then, men would be, the alternative. Wouldn't it? Wouldn't they? I mean, if well, there's no other choice. If you are still going to have sex with a person, and you've decided women are off limits, then I guess you'd have to have sex with men. But then maybe, once you do that, you'll just get used to having sex with men, and then you'll never want to have anything to do with women, and then you'll just, well, not become a married father. And that would be the problem, and maybe that's why homosexuality was always frowned on, because it seems like, harmless and easy to do, and then you realise you have all these men who are not interested in becoming married fathers, because they, I guess most men would just marry to have sex. And if they realise they can have sex, without marrying a woman, then they go for it in a big way until you notice that, hey, why are men not getting married now? You have to do something, and that's why you execute sodomites. That might be the reason. Don't you think?
That's why men get married, because you execute. Oh, why men won't have sex with each other, because you execute sodomites?
Yeah, and then you indoctrinate them. There is a kind of social engineering too for people who the other way. I mean, people complain about social engineering, saying it's for Marxist reasons or whatever. But when they do it the other way, I guess they engineer into them a sense of revulsion at the thought of, men being gay, so they don't even think about it, and then if they do, they'll get punished. So, to stop them, all these men from thinking, hey, wouldn't it be just easier if we just had sex with each other without having to marry these women and pay for their kids? Who wants to do that?
Well, I'm saying that we need enlightened people that want to do it for the sake of the race, not because they were trapped into it, not because they were fear-mongered in it, not because they were told they had to do it, or there were social consequences for not doing it. I think the human race needs to be perpetuated by people who are doing it for the sake of doing it, and not like enslavement and accident.
Well, we don't know why people do these things. I mean, I suppose they think, oh, I fell in love, and then I married, and I have this wonderful, all these wonderful children. But, who knows really why people do anything at all?
Well, I'm just saying rearrange the social order. So,
Yeah, but
well,
it's
not on
risky,
the
you see,
government
because
level.
if it doesn't work, it'll,
Yeah,
well,
but
you'll.
not everyone's going to be doing it.
Yeah, but you will be spreading. I mean, that's what people said when they, when some men, I suppose, when they thought, oh, I've discovered I can have sex with other men, so we don't need women. And then you probably want to recruit a few people, and that's how it all started. And then, they all started doing it until, I guess the leader of the pack or something said, well, why are they doing this? Why is no one getting married anymore? And then, I guess 70% of the men said, oh, that's because we're all gay. Well, why marry a woman when you can have sex with a man, and nobody ever gets pregnant, and there'll never be any children? Because I mean, that is also part of the appeal of the gay lifestyle, isn't it?
Well, yes, I mean that's part of it,
But
but
you don't seem to want that part of it.
what part of it?
The non-parent. I mean, the fact that gay people are not parents
Well, I
usually.
don't think that that's necessarily good for the future. I mean, I'm talking about something very futuristic here, and I think that gay people should start having children, and if we can, we should be able to outcompete heterosexuals, especially if we do something like invent womb technology. I mean, I think that that would just be artificial womb technology. I think that would just be like a big boon. I think that gay men need to be, look, gay men like to like make things pretty, right? They like to like organize things and kind of streamline things or whatever, however you want to call it. They have a tendency to want to do that. So I'm like, well, start streamlining the human race, like, start putting all your time and energy into creating a great race, and maybe a little bit less time into art and opera and music and all these other kinds of things that you have a tendency to get involved in. do this. And I think that they and the world would be a lot better off if that's when it happens.
All right, Vincent. I
You're
suppose
done
if
with me?
pardon.
You're done with me?
Um, yes, I think I have to call somebody before it's too late.
Okay. I said okay.
Okay, okay, and I guess I'll speak to you another time. Thank you for spending Koraniyule with us.
Yes, sure, of course, anytime.
Okay,
All
take
right.
care. Bye bye.
Bye.